got some real estate here in my life. Ooh. So we bought a pack of cigarettes and Mrs. Wagner's pies, and we walked off to look for America. Kathy, I said as we boarded a Greyhound in Pittsburgh, Michigan seems like a dream to me now. It took me 4 days to hitchhike from Saginaw. I've gone to look for America.
Laughing on the bus, playing games with the faces. She said the man in the gabardine suit was a spy. I said, be careful, this bow tie is really on camera.
Toss me a cigarette, I think there's one in my raincoat. You smoked the last one an hour ago. Ooh. So we looked out at the scenery. She read her magazine, and the moon rose over an open field. Kathy, I'm lost, I said, though I knew she was sleeping. I'm empty and aching and I don't know why. Counting the cars on the New Jersey Turnpike, they've all gone to look for America. All gone to look for America. All gone to look for America. Why did you wait so late?
I would like to confess that I've been asked to cut about 2/3 of my speech out and deliver as short a speech as possible. You are free to believe me or to disbelieve, but please take my word on it that I am not joking. This is very serious, a matter of importance.
This is the recording some believe cost him his life. In September 1977, the writer Philip K. Dick spoke to an audience in France. They expected science fiction. What he said, instead, revealed too much about reality and drew the attention of the CIA and FBI, changing his life forever.
The subject of this speech is a topic which has been discovered recently. A breaching, a tinkering, a change had been made, but not in our present, had been made in our past. A variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this, an alternative world branched off, became actualized instead of the prior one, and that in fact, in literal fact, we are once more living this particular segment of linear time.
He said the CIA and FBI had taken his work years earlier. That's when you know he may have spoken too much.
In March of '74, the CIA opened my mail. The FBI had a file on me. I've seen both. But the cops were watching everything I did, and I was correct. And I was told that the house was being watched, and that eventually my house would be hit, my files would be opened, my papers would be taken, and so it came to pass. When I came home and found my house consisting of nothing but rubble, ruin, chaos, broken windows, smashed doorknobs, blown open files.
A few years later, he suddenly dies, right before the premiere of Blade Runner, June 1982, the film adaptation of his novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Fans said it was strange that the author who had predicted so many modern themes about AI, identity, and reality never got to see the movie that would finally make him widely famous. What's strange to me is that he was only writing science fiction, yet the FBI and CIA started watching him. To me, that means he was touching information never meant for the public. That's what caught my attention, so listen carefully to what comes next. I know attention spans are short, but trust me, this video will give you chills.
We are accustomed to supposing that all change takes place along the linear time axis, from past to present to future. The present is an accrual of the past and is different from it. The future will accrue from the present on and be different yet. That an orthogonal or right-angled time axis could exist, a lateral domain in which change takes place, processes occurring sideways in reality, so to speak, this is almost impossible to imagine. How would we perceive such lateral changes? What would we experience? What clues, if we are trying to test out this bizarre theory, should we be on the alert for? In other words, how can change take place outside of linear time at all, in any sense, to any degree?
Philip tries to make this strange idea easier to understand with a simple picture. Imagine a painting on a wall. Instead of replacing the whole painting, the servants secretly change details on the same canvas. They remove a tree, add a girl, shift small elements. When the owner looks at it, he sees something new, yet also familiar. His brain struggles. It's the same painting, but also not the same. Dick uses this example to suggest that reality might be altered in subtle ways, not fully replaced.
Contemplating this possibility of a lateral arrangement of worlds, a plurality of overlapping Earths along whose linking axis a person can somehow move, can travel in a mysterious way from worse to fair to good to excellent. Contemplating this in theological terms, perhaps we could say that herewith we suddenly decipher the elliptical utterances which Christ expressed regarding the kingdom of God, specifically where it is located.
He connects his theory of parallel worlds to the words of Jesus. He points out that Jesus gave answers that seemed contradictory about the kingdom of God. He said, "My kingdom is not of this world," but also, "The kingdom is within you," or among you. Dick suggests these statements weren't meant to confuse, but to describe something deeper. Maybe Jesus was speaking about these overlapping realms, multiple realities that can be reached by living human beings. Some of them dark, others beautiful, and at the highest level, the just kingdom of God.
I, in my stories and novels, often write about counterfeit worlds, semi-real worlds, as well as deranged private worlds, inhabited often by just one person, while meantime the other characters either remain in their own worlds throughout or are somehow drawn into one of the peculiar ones. This theme occurs in the corpus of my 27 years of writing. At no time did I have a theoretical or conscious explanation for my preoccupation with these pluriform pseudo-worlds, but now I think I understand. What I was sensing was the manifold of partially actualized realities. It was in February of 1974 that my blocked-off memories of Track A returned, and it was in February of 1974 that my novel, Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said, was released finally, after two years' delay. It was almost as if the release of the novel, which had been delayed so long, meant that in a certain sense it was all right for me to remember. That is, to remember that the book was not fiction. The book was based on subliminal memories which I had of such a world.
After connecting his book to subliminal memories, he went deeper into describing what happened to him in early 1974. He said it began after dental surgery, when he was recovering at home. One afternoon, a delivery girl came to his door wearing a necklace with a Christian fish symbol. As the sunlight reflected off the necklace, Dick saw a sudden flash of pink light. From that moment on, he reported a series of overwhelming visions. He claimed the pink beam carried information directly into his mind, not images he imagined, but structured knowledge. He suddenly knew that his infant son had a dangerous undiagnosed medical condition. When doctors checked, they confirmed it, saving the boy's life. To Dick, this proved the experience was not fantasy. In the weeks that followed, the visions intensified. He said he lived in two overlapping realities, California in 1974 and ancient Rome in the 1st century. At times, he believed he was both himself and a Christian slave living under Roman rule. He described it as if time had folded, two tracks of history running at the same time, and his consciousness could move between them. Philip also reported receiving vast amounts of information, entire downloads of philosophy, theology, and science that felt too complex to invent. He said it was as if an external intelligence, which he later called VALIS, Vast Active Living Intelligence System, was transmitting knowledge into his brain. For him, this explained why many of his novels already contain themes of false realities, hidden powers, and overlapping worlds. He believed those stories were subliminal memories breaking through long before he consciously understood them.
Plural realities did exist, superimposed onto one another like so many film transparency. What I still do not grasp, however, is how one reality out of the many becomes actualized in contradistinction to the others. More likely, the Matrix world, the one with the true core of being, is determined by the programmer. He or it articulates, prints out, so to speak, the matrix choice and fuses it with actual substance. The core or essence of reality, that which receives or attains it, and to what degree, that is within the purview of the programmer. This selection and reselection is part of general creativity of world building, which seems to be it or his task.
As you can see, some people in the audience laughed at what he was saying. Remember, this was 1977. Back then, ideas about multiple realities and hidden programmers sounded completely insane to most people. Today, talk of simulations, parallel worlds, or alternate timelines isn't new anymore. Scientists and philosophers discuss it openly. But what still makes me pause is not the theory itself. It's the fact that the CIA and FBI really did open his mail, keep files on him, raid his home, and take his papers. That part still raises questions. If he was just a sci-fi writer making things up, why go to such lengths? Maybe he had said too much. And to make his concept easier to grasp, he gave an example. He compared reality itself to a game of chess. Imagine two players. one representing a dark, destructive force, and the other representing the guiding intelligence behind reality. On the surface, it can look like the dark player is winning moves, capturing pieces, and gaining control of the board. But in truth, the game is already structured so that the ultimate victory belongs to the higher player. According to this view, the guiding intelligence, what Dick sometimes called the programmer, has already chosen the variables in advance. Every apparent loss is only part of a larger sequence that leads to final victory. People sense this instinctively, which is why they pray to be included in that winning path, asking not to be left behind in the game. To be left out means staying under the influence of the destructive force, stuck in a darker version of reality. But even as that force seems clever, even as it appears to win in the short term, it is already defeated. It is blind to the full pattern of the game. The higher player sees the whole board, sees every possible move, and because of that, the outcome is decided. The constructive force will always prevail, and the only question is whether we are moved along with it, or left trapped in the losing side of the match.
I submit to you that such alterations, the creation or selection of such so-called alternative presence, is continually taking place. The very fact that we can conceptually deal with this notion, that is, entertain it as an idea, is the first step in discerning such processes themselves.
He gave some very simple examples of how these shifts might show up in everyday life. You might reach for a light switch in your bathroom and suddenly realize it has always been in a different spot. Or you might go to adjust the air vent in your car, only to find there was never one there at all. These are reflexes left over from another version of the present, habits from a timeline that no longer exists, but which still linger in your memory at a subconscious level. Sometimes we even dream of people or places we've never seen, yet they feel familiar and vivid, as if we really had known them. Most of the time, we dismiss it and move on. But one of the strongest impressions many people experience is déjà vu, that strange, undeniable feeling that we are reliving the present moment exactly as it happened before. We hear the same words, we say the same words, and we are sure we've been here before. Dick argued this wasn't just a trick of the mind. For him, déjà vu was evidence. He believed it was a clue that at some point in the past, a variable had been changed, as if reality was reprogrammed, and that a new timeline branched off from the old one. In other words, we are not just imagining it. We are literally reliving the same segment of time again, only in a slightly altered version of reality.
A breaching, a tinkering, a change had been made, but not in our present, had been made in our past. Evidently, such an alteration would have a peculiar effect on those persons involved. They would, so to speak, be moved back one square or several squares on the board game which constitutes our reality. Conceivably, this could happen any number of times, affecting any number of people, as alternative variables were reprogrammed. We would have to live out each reprogramming along the subsequent linear time axis, but to the programmer, whom we call God, to him the results of the programming would be apparent at once. We are within time, and he is not. We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs.
He believed that every time reality shifts, a new lateral world is generated, and with each shift, the guiding intelligence, the programmer, achieves a kind of victory. Each new version of reality isn't perfect, but it's slightly better than the one before it. In his view, the universe is constantly being refined, stage by stage, through this process. The way he described it, the old universe doesn't disappear. It becomes raw material, a kind of stockpile that is used to build the new one. What looks like chaos or broken fragments in one timeline might actually be the foundation for the next. This means reality isn't moving toward collapse, but toward improvement. Even if we can't always see how, the process keeps pushing forward, generating alternate worlds one after another, each infused with a little more order and structure than the last.
What we need at this point is to locate, to bring forth as evidence, someone who has managed somehow, it doesn't matter how, to retain memories of a different present, latent alternate world impressions, different in some significant way from this, the one which is at this stage actualized. According to my theoretical view, it would almost certainly be memories of a worse world than this. For it is not reasonable that God the programmer and reprogrammer would substitute a worse world in terms of freedom or beauty or love or order or healthiness by any standard which we know.
If what Philip K. Dick was describing is true, that reality can shift sideways, that alternate versions of the world appear again and again, then maybe we've already seen signs of it without realizing. One of the clearest examples is what we now call the Mandela effect. Millions of people around the world share the same memory of something that doesn't match today's official version of events. The name itself comes from people remembering that Nelson Mandela died in prison during the 1980s. They remember news reports, public reactions, even school lessons about his death. Yet, in this timeline, Mandela was released and later became president of South Africa, living until 2013. For those who have the older memory, it feels as though history was rewritten. And it doesn't stop there. People remember the Berenstain Bears spelled as Berenstein, with an E. They remember the Monopoly Man having a monocle, when in fact, he never did. They recall the movie line, "Luke, I am your father," when the actual line is,
"No, I am your father."
These aren't just a handful of mistakes. They're shared, consistent memories across millions of people, as if we really had lived in a slightly different version of reality. Philip K. Dick's theory offers one possible explanation. If variables can be changed, if a programmer can shift us laterally from one track to another, then déjà vu, false memories, or the Mandela effect might not be errors at all. They could be traces of previous presents, fragments of timelines we once occupied but no longer do. This is where things get even stranger, because it's not just personal memories. Pop culture itself sometimes seems to reveal knowledge of events long before they happen. One of the most famous examples is The Simpsons. For more than 3 decades, the animated show has been making jokes that later turn out to mirror real-world events with uncanny accuracy. Years before smartwatches were invented, The Simpsons showed characters using wrist devices to make phone calls. They joked about a defective autocorrect feature on a handheld device, long before smartphones made that frustration a daily reality. They even portrayed Disney eventually buying 20th Century Fox, a merger that seemed absurd at the time but became reality in 2019. In another episode, they showed a skyscraper with a design almost identical to London's Shard, drawn over a decade before construction even began. They sketched a Nobel Prize prediction board that matched the actual Nobel winner announced years later. And in one storyline, they featured a 3-eyed fish living near a power plant, which was followed years later by news photos of a 3-eyed fish discovered in Argentina, living by water contaminated from a nuclear facility. At some point, the list becomes too long to ignore. These aren't just vague jokes that can be stretched to fit events. They're oddly specific details, many of them tied to technology, science, or cultural shifts that hadn't happened yet. Some people laugh it off as coincidence. Others wonder if the writers had hidden knowledge. And some even go further, suggesting, half joking but half serious, that the show's creator might have glimpsed the future, or somehow tapped into the same overlapping layers of reality Philip K. Dick described back in 1977. When you place these examples next to his words, the similarities are hard to miss. He spoke of multiple versions of the world stacked like film transparencies, with one becoming actualized over another. Whether through shared memories, déjà vu, or a cartoon that seems to predict events years ahead of time, the effect is the same. We're left questioning whether reality is as fixed as we assume. And once you notice it, you start to wonder, are these just coincidences? Or are they clues that we are already slipping sideways, moving through alternate timelines without even realizing it?
Days grow shorter and the nights are getting long. Feels like we're running out of time. Every day it seems
There is a mystery unfolding in outer space as we speak. We have a name for this mystery. We call it 3I Atlas, but that doesn't mean we actually know what it is or what it's doing. 3I Atlas is weird. It looks weird, it moves weird, it's made of weird stuff, and for all of the time that we've spent studying this object, there is a new indication that it might have actually been studying us for even longer. Let's begin with some recent images of 3I Atlas that were captured by astrophotographers in the remote desert of Namibia on the southern tip of Africa. This is already an incredibly dark place on Earth, but the photographers were able to take advantage of a lunar eclipse where the shadow of the Earth blocked out any sunlight from reflecting off the moon, essentially creating the darkest sky possible and therefore the clearest view into outer space. During this time, they could have pointed their cameras at anything, but they chose to locate 3I Atlas in their viewfinder, and what they saw was shocking. The object was glowing bright green in the night sky. Now, based on what we know about 3I Atlas, it should not be turning green, or at least there is no natural explanation right now for it to be green. You see, the prevailing theory among scientists and astronomers is that 3I Atlas is an interstellar comet, meaning it's generally the same as all of the other comets we see flying around. It has a big, bright, fuzzy halo of gas and dust around it, that's the coma, and it also has a big fan-shaped tail as well. But this comet is also different, because this one came from a totally different star system in some far-off place in the galaxy. So we are expecting it to be a little weird. But the problem with 3I Atlas is that it keeps doing things that just don't make sense. For example, it's not actually unusual for a comet to turn green. And because this is pretty normal, we know a lot about the chemical process that creates the green color. It happens when carbon molecules in the coma are exposed to ultraviolet radiation from the sun. Specifically, this happens to diatomic carbon, or C2, which is just two carbon atoms that are bonded to each other. So if 3I Atlas were a normal comet, it would have a lot of these carbon structures around its surface, and it would turn green in the sunlight. But we know from observations that were made over the summer using pretty much every major telescope in existence that 3I Atlas is actually deficient in these carbon chain molecules. It doesn't have any C2, and yet it is clearly glowing green. So why is that happening? We don't know. Aliens? Yeah, maybe they just like green lights. Now, we also know that the coma surrounding 3I Atlas is filled with CO2, which is carbon bonded to oxygen atoms, and that is a totally different thing from C2. It does make the object incredibly bright, but that would not turn it green. And the presence of that much CO2 alone is also pretty strange because it vastly outweighs the amount of H2O, or water vapor, in the coma, which is basically the opposite of an average comet because they typically have a lot more water than CO2. Except that's not the only weird thing in the coma of 3I Atlas, because it's also full of metal, particularly nickel. And again, this is not exactly unusual for a comet, but it is weird for 3I Atlas to be doing it right now. A lot of comets have metal in their composition, and often that metal will end up evaporating out into the coma. But this only ever happens when the comet gets incredibly close to the sun, where there's enough heat to vaporize metal. 3I Atlas is not close to the sun, and the presence of nickel was first detected when it was still out in between Mars and Jupiter. So there's no reasonable explanation as to why it's releasing a bunch of metal, specifically nickel, unless you were to entertain the theory that 3I Atlas is an alien spacecraft, in which case, rocket engines are typically made from metal alloys that are high in nickel content, and when you burn those engines, a lot of nickel tends to end up in the exhaust gas, a lot of CO2 as well. Of course, this probably isn't aliens, but there's also something weird happening with the way that 3I Atlas is moving through the solar system. Probably unrelated to rocket engines that may or may not exist, but what's interesting is the trajectory and velocity of 3I Atlas has remained almost perfectly consistent for the entire time that we've been observing it. Since the object was first spotted in early May up until right now in October, it has not sped up, slowed down, or changed direction by any meaningful amount. That might not sound weird, but if this were a comet, then it should be moving around a lot more. You see, comets heat up as they approach the sun, which causes them to melt, or technically to sublimate, which is what happens when a solid transitions directly into a gas. And the release of that gas tends to push the comet around in space, like a thruster. So a typical comet will change velocity and direction depending on what side is being exposed to the sun. We call that movement non-gravitational acceleration, or NGA, and we typically measure the average distance of variation that occurs in one day. As we've seen, 3I Atlas has been doing a lot of sublimating already, including a mini tail that formed in the direction of the sun, which has now begun to evolve into a longer tail that is facing away from the sun. And yet, on a daily basis, the velocity and trajectory of 3I Atlas has only fluctuated by about 1.5 kilometers of NGA per day. Let's compare that with 2I Borisov, the most normal of the interstellar trio. It was measured to fluctuate over 100 kilometers per day, about 100 times more movement on average than Atlas. Now, one potential explanation would be that Atlas is bigger and therefore harder to move. Makes sense. But we can bring in another point of comparison. This is Hale-Bopp. It's one of the biggest comets we've ever discovered in our solar system, at least as big as 3I Atlas, if not much bigger. We saw Hale-Bopp move around by an average of over 10 kilometers of NGA per day, again, around 10 times more than Atlas. And Oumuamua blows them all away. At some points, it was changing direction by over 1,000 kilometers per day. So even when compared to other interstellar objects, 3I Atlas is moving in a very strange way. It's holding such an unusually steady course that you could almost say it's intentional, as if it's being guided through the solar system. Now, there's probably a natural explanation for that, but let's just say that if 3I Atlas is a ship that is being steered, then not only can it hold a course, but it could, theoretically, also change course whenever it wants. Right now, we expect that 3I Atlas will end up being on the opposite side of the sun from the Earth as it passes through the inner solar system, so we won't have an opportunity to see it up close, or it won't have a chance to see us, unless somehow 3I Atlas is able to slow itself down as it passes by the sun and we find it waiting for us on the other side. Here's a crazy theory for you that might actually hold some water. Have you ever heard of the WOW signal? It was discovered in 1977 by astronomers at Ohio State University who are using something called the Big Ear Radio Telescope. It's like a big ear that listens for weird stuff in space. And on this one day, it found something so weird that the person reading the data just wrote the word "wow" on the paper printout. Hence the name. What shocked them so much was this incredibly powerful narrowband radio signal that lasted for 72 seconds and originated from a point deep in outer space. We know that it didn't come from any of our technology. It didn't come from the sun or any planet in our solar system. We only know that it came from the general direction of the constellation Sagittarius. Now, the first thing that stands out about the WOW signal is the incredible amount of energy it would have required to blast out a narrowband radio frequency across interstellar space. If it was made by aliens, then they would have to be a civilization so advanced that they could harness the energy of a star. Or if it was a natural phenomenon, then it must have been created by some kind of activity inside a star. Now, the second important thing about the WOW signal has to do with hydrogen, which is the most abundant atom in the known universe. And there's this thing called the hydrogen line. It's a radio frequency that gets created by hydrogen atoms. That's a big simplification, but all you need to know is that the frequency of the hydrogen line is 1420 megahertz. And the frequency of the WOW signal, you guessed it, 1420 megahertz. So if you were trying to send a very simple message into the galaxy in a way that any other civilization with advanced knowledge of science would recognize, that's probably how you would do it. And in the 5 decades since then, we have never detected another radio signal that has looked anything like that. Anyway, the reason why this is interesting is because astronomers have been able to reverse engineer the trajectory of 3I Atlas, and we're pretty sure that it also comes from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, the same general direction of the WOW signal. That is a pretty big coincidence, and it's got some people thinking that maybe the real origin of the WOW signal wasn't some distant star, but it might have come from our new visitor, 3I Atlas, which in the year 1977 would have been on the outer edge of our solar system, far beyond the orbit of Pluto. Maybe it just wanted to give us a heads up that it was on the way. Of course, that is just a theory, one that hasn't been proven to be true and probably never will be, but it also hasn't been proven to be false either. And that's probably the most important thing to keep in mind as we learn more about 3I Atlas. Objects like this one demand that we keep an open mind to the endless possibilities of the universe. The truth is out there, and it's headed in our direction.
Hey everyone, geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We now have imagery of interstellar object 3I Atlas as taken from Mars. It performed a close approach of the red planet on October 3rd, being just about 0.2 astronomical units away, so it's not that far. And well, there's a variety of satellites that are zooming around the planet. The different space agencies, NASA, ESA, and others have pledged that they will take observations of interstellar object 3I Atlas with. We're still completely in the dark as it relates to that high quality data. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, its HiRISE camera, should give us our sharpest look yet at interstellar object 3I Atlas. We don't have that data. We don't have any data from ESA's Mars Express or from the Chinese or from the UAE. But we do have the Mars Perseverance rover, which keeps on persevering, and it uploads photos just to a public data feed that anyone can access. And on October 3rd and October 4th, it took long exposure images of the night sky from the Martian surface, which do overlap with where 3I Atlas was expected to be. And the clever work of two smart amateur astronomers were able to stack those images together, remove the noise, and pull out 3I Atlas so we could see it. But we're still completely in the dark as it relates to this official imagery from NASA, ESA, and others. And honestly, this is kind of concerning that we're having to rely on these super low quality pictures from the Mars Perseverance rover, because now that 3I Atlas has gone close to Mars, it's outside of our ability to view from Earth. And it's going to perform a superior conjunction on October 21st, which means that will be on the other side of the sun. So it's now in the glare of the sun. If you go outside and you're looking at the sun, just nearby is 3I Atlas effectively for the next 6 weeks or so. We're probably not going to be able to get any telescope observations of 3I Atlas or Hubble or anything else like that until probably the beginning of December. So at this moment in time, we really actually don't know what this thing is doing. We have an idea of its orbital path based off of all of our prior measurements, and it's most likely that this is just going to keep following along that because it's most likely that's an interstellar object. Maybe it's some sort of bizarre interstellar comet that has features much different than comets within our solar system. A lot of people think it's aliens. Well, that's the thing. That is a non-zero probability. That's not what I'm putting my poker chips on, but it's a non-zero probability. And just from a preparedness standpoint, if this thing is something other than just a space rock, we need to be able to track what it's doing at this critical moment in time for, you could say, the safety and security of our planet and species. Like, we are living in this age now where we need to be concerned about space and what's happening in our interstellar neighborhood. We can't be oblivious and ignorant anymore. And so we don't have any public data yet on 3I Atlas viewed from Mars other than the Perseverance rover data, which is really not the highest quality, but it's useful to see that it is there and it was in the expected position for its orbit. That's good. But at this point now, no one on Earth can track what's happening with 3I Atlas, where it is. And we're going to be blind until all the way until December, because this equipment that we have on Mars, like the HiRISE camera, it's not meant for like observations of comets deep in space. So now that's on the flyby, I don't know what we're going to have observed 3I Atlas in the future. I mean, we have ESA's JUICE, which is a satellite probe that will capture some images, they say, in early November. But for that critical time period of that Superior conjunction, October 21st and 22nd, and its perihelion, its closest approach to the sun, October 29th and 30th, we're going to be flying blind. So it's really key that we get this data as soon as possible. A lot of people are very fearful as to what is happening with this. In fact, there was one image that was released by the Perseverance rover, which a lot of people took to beat 3I Atlas, and they started elaborating on its cylindrical shape and how it's an alien craft and all this stuff. That, in fact, is the moon Phobos. Mars has two moons, Phobos and Deimos. Phobos is the one that was captured there, and Phobos means fear. So it's interesting the synchronicities that are lining up around this. But that is the current status update on interstellar object 3I Atlas. Let's give that imagery a look and dive a little bit more into the details so we know why and how that's 3I Atlas and not some random artifact. Here we have two final composite images as observed by Mars Perseverance rover's Mastcam. There's also a Navcam, which is a much wider field of view and lower resolution. So this is the one that we want to look at if we have any hope of observing 3I Atlas in the night sky. And it points up to the night sky every single night and gets some snapshots and takes about 5 or 6 or 10 minutes total of these long exposure photos. So here we have 36 total images, 29-second exposures for October 3rd. Here we have effectively the same situation, 40 total images though, same exposure length, October 4th. And we had Simon Shmov process these images. He removed the noise and did a whole bunch of crazy stuff, which is a little difficult to explain. Stacked images together, and we see 3I Atlas right here. But specifically, see that very faint cloud right there? That is 3I Atlas. Basically, it was really difficult to observe this thing at all, but we see the normal stars there. But that very faint little cloud is what Simon was able to process on the 3rd of October. Now, if you go to the 4th of October, we had Astronomy Live go ahead and process the data, and you can find him on X at AstroFerg. Links to both of these gentlemen in the video description so you can check this out yourself. And specifically, this guy's live stream on how to process this data to get to this image is well worth watching, at least the first 20 minutes or so, because it goes over quite a bit. So he also did something very similar, took those raw images and then he reduced the noise by calibrating the frames. He set like a 5% threshold that reduced most of the noise, not all of it. And then, there's this deep sky streaking that is created. So he created a dark frame and subtracted the dark frame from all the images. And then what's left is effectively this, which you can then line up the different stars and try to reduce their exposure streaking, and boom, there is 3I Atlas. And I think this is definitely the better image of the bunch. We see its nucleus there, or at least its central point, and then you do see a very diffuse green coma around it. So it's actually pretty incredible that we got any sort of usable imagery of interstellar object 3I Atlas from the Mars Perseverance rover, which is the only thing that's pumping out data to the public right now. Everything else is not publicly accessible for some reason. It's all locked up. Whether that's intentional or not, it's just following standard protocol, I don't know. We do have this government shutdown right now in the United States. because of this back and forth with the two dumb political parties that we have. And so everything's locked up. That is affecting NASA as well as other organizations. And so I think that's probably going to delay when we're going to see these images of 3I Atlas from Mars. But the main thing here, other than like, it's good to see it, and we don't really get any update on its structure or composition or anything from this photo or from this one. But what these two images tell us is that 3I Atlas is still in the position in the sky that is expected based off of all the prior observations and its orbital data. But that now is completely up in the air because, well, we can't observe it anymore. So we hope it continues along that trajectory, but we really don't know. Let's check it out. Here we have a 3D solar system viewer as provided by the Sky Live. Link in the video description if you want to play with this yourself. And we see 3I Atlas right there. We see its trajectory. This is where it has been, and this is the expected trajectory going forward, though that is an unknown. We don't know if it's going to follow that trajectory, especially if it is of some sort of technological origin or it's an alien ship or something. It doesn't have to just follow the normal rules of gravity because it can, accelerate, decelerate, and move around just like we can in a car or a boat or whatever. Here we see where it is today, October 6th. It's close to Mars. It's getting closer to the inner solar system. If you view it from this angle here, you see Earth, the sun. You'll notice that's now pretty much behind the sun. So we can't observe it anymore from Earth. It's in the glare of the sun. And that's going to be the case all the way till about the beginning of December, if not even further along. We have the superior conjunction of it right here. This is when we are really completely blind as to what's happening with 3I Atlas. For example, on that day, if you go out and you're looking at the sun, you are looking right in the direction of this interstellar object if it is still there in that orbital position. And then if you go forward here to, let's say, the beginning of December, right about here, we see that there is still some glare from the sun, but now it should be more viewable from Earth. So we're gonna have to wait all the way till probably like mid-November, early December, maybe even like middle December to get imagery of 3I Atlas. And so we have the Hubble telescope provided us a really high quality photo of 3I Atlas back in July. We also had some from other observatories on Earth, also James Webb. And I find it kind of crazy that we don't have another powerful telescope positioned away from the planet such that in a situation like this, where we don't know what this is, 99.999% chance that it is just an interstellar object, a big space rock hurtling through. But there is a non-zero probability that it's not that. Right? A lot of people are talking about that. The probability is very low, but it's a non-zero probability. If we were smart as a species and a society, because we are only right now on Earth, we have all our eggs in one basket, beautiful basket, but one basket, we should have another high-powered telescope or a couple of them in the inner solar system in different orbits. And I know that takes a lot of fuel to keep it in its orbit, so maybe it's not possible at this moment in time, but at least we should try. Because if we had a Hubble telescope, for example, right here, we could get some awesome imagery of interstellar object 3I Atlas and actually maybe figure out what the heck this thing is. Instead, we are totally blind for the next 2 months or so, and we're not going to get any imagery of 3I Atlas, as far as I know, after these data sets are released from those different orbiters on Mars. And right now, at this moment in time, they haven't even released that. It's been 3 days. Now, there is this government shutdown, and maybe it takes time to process the data, but these amateur astronomers working with really crappy data from the Mars Perseverance rover were able to process that like within a day or two. So I don't know what the holdup is. The whole thing smells a little fishy to me, but there's just a whole bunch of factors in flux right now. I do recognize that. But in a perfect world, we would have a variety of telescopes that could give us observations on things coming into our solar system. And it doesn't even have to be interstellar objects. It could also just be a big honking asteroid like Apophis. Like, what the heck is this thing? Oh, we need to get a lot of good measurements on this so we can precisely determine its orbit to see if it's going to hit the Earth or not. So it really seems to me that we're like children playing in a sandbox. And we don't know what the heck we're doing. We haven't figured it out yet. And maybe with time, maybe it'll happen in this 21st century when we'll start to wake up that we are more than a species just on one planet, but we are living within a larger cosmos. And we're just one small component of that. And if we want to continue on and keep evolving, progressing, we need to be prepared. I learned that very early on in the Scouts. Scouts motto, be prepared. Doesn't seem like we're prepared at all at this moment in time. But let's check out this image that was taken by the Mars Perseverance rover that is being circulated widely right now as being 3I Atlas, so we can see whether or not that is the case and talk about some of the synchronicities that are unfolding at this moment in time. Here we have an image of something in the night sky taken by the NavCam on the Mars Perseverance rover. And this was voted Image of the Week by public vote. So this is not a photo that's selected by NASA for any particular reason. It was just that a whole bunch of people voted for this and it won the public vote for this week. And so it's a featured image as a result of that. But a lot of people are running with the story that this is 3I Atlas and that this is clear proof that it has a cylindrical shape and that it's glowing and all this stuff. Well, this is an exposure photo, in fact, of Phobos, which is one of the two moons that is orbiting around Mars. And Phobos means fear. Phobos is the Greek god of fear. Deimos is the other one. It's like fear and dread. And they are the sons of Ares and Aphrodite. So I find it interesting that there is this big fear around 3I Atlas and that it is aliens and that, you know, the government is hiding something from us and that, you know, they call this big meeting of all the generals in the United States for 3I Atlas, and then people are using this photo of Phobos to say it's an alien ship and that's clear proof and everything else. This is from the NavCam. It's a much wider field of view and much lower resolution than the Mastcam. So we saw the quality of 3I Atlas from the Mastcam. You're not going to get a good photo of 3I Atlas at all from the NavCam. You're not even going to be able to pull it out of the data. That's from my research and my digging. I am just one person, but I do have a good sense of what's right and what's wrong, I feel like. So that's why people have resonated to the channel. But this is the moon Phobos. So if you see this online, this is just one of Mars's moons, and it has this kind of elongation to it because this is an exposure, and well, the moon was moving and Mars was rotating, and so as a result, you get this elongation of that, and it's a pretty featureless thing because it's a very low resolution camera. But the synchronicity of this being Phobos and people mistaking it for 3I Atlas and then using this as proof of it being an alien ship, I think is really, really interesting. Now, what did not help the situation as it relates to this image and people thinking that's 3I Atlas is that Avi Loeb went out and said, hey, we got this image of 3I Atlas. I mean, just read the title here on his Medium post, Interpretation of the Stripe in the New Image of 3I Atlas from the Mars Perseverance rover. And so he spent this entire article talking about this thing, and you have to get all the way to the bottom that the above analysis is based on the assumption that the NavCam images are of 3I Atlas. This was not specified explicitly on the NASA website. And so he basically whipped a lot of people up into a craze because, you know, he's the big guy talking about aliens, aliens, aliens. And he's saying that this is 3I Atlas, but in fact, it's not. And you have to get all the way to the bottom until the "it may be" question mark phrasing. Which should have been right there in the title. So I guess I'm only pointing this out because you should be very, very skeptical of everything that you see, and also pay a lot of attention to the phrasing, the wording. It's okay to put material out there and be like, let's say you saw this, you're like, is that 3I Atlas question mark? But to say it is definitively, and we don't know, I think is a real disservice. And to follow up on that, let's discuss this video that I created that was taken from a series of images captured by the Mars Perseverance rover Mastcam on October 2nd. And we see this object streaking across the night sky. No idea what that is. You'll notice that I wrote here, the object, maybe 3I Atlas, is flying across the screen. Well, a lot of people chimed in on this. This actually was shared quite widely, this video. It does not appear that this is 3I Atlas because it's moving across the field of view much too fast to be 3I Atlas. This is like 9 minutes of data or so, and we would expect 3i Atlas to move across this at a much slower clip. So this could be something that was much closer, perhaps like some tiny little asteroid that was much closer to Mars, that was able to move through quickly, maybe some sort of abnormality with the image sensing. I don't know. But the key is that the object maybe 3i Atlas was observed. It was a question mark posed to the community, which then we got a lot of feedback on to determine that this in fact was not 3i Atlas. And we saw how 3i Atlas looked with those composite time-lapse photos taken from Perseverance. It wasn't streaking across the sky. It was pretty much stationary in that position because it is pretty far away. Close from some perspectives, 0.2 astronomical units, but not close enough and fast enough to be moving through the entire night sky in 9 minutes. That's the latest update on interstellar object 3i Atlas and what we can expect going forward, aka no photos effectively for anything after the transit of Mars. As far as I know, we do have JUICE in November, but we don't know when that data will be released. And well, to clarify, there is a chance that we see interstellar object 3i Atlas appear on the SOHO coronagraph view, specifically the C3 coronagraph, which is 32 solar radii across. They put an occluding disk over the sun to show the solar wind and the solar storms that are launched off from the sun. And we see the planets often appear on the coronagraph when they are performing superior conjunctions and or inferior conjunctions. So we often see Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Mercury. The question is, will 3i Atlas be big enough and bright enough to appear visibly on the coronagraph? And if it is, then we will have observations of it in October. If it's not, then we will, yes, be totally blind. That's the bigger story here. I think that the fact that we are totally blind and going to be completely ignorant as to what is happening with this very bizarre thing is really highlighting our ineptitude. And I said that in the prior video as well, but it's still true. So thanks to Simon Schmov and also Astronomy Live for processing those Mars Perseverance rover images. I've linked to both of those gentlemen in the video description, and I'll let you know as soon as I can when we get some of this data from these other orbiters like the HiRISE camera and Mars Express and maybe the Chinese and the UAE. Like once that's released, I'll release a video update as soon as possible. Hopefully that gives us a lot of clarity as to what this thing is, but until then we are totally in the dark. NASA is silent, there's a government shutdown, ESA is silent, no one's released anything. It's only because we have this Perseverance rover data feed, which is really also, you could comment on how that's kind of a sad state of affairs right now. The fact that we're, as a public, this concerns everyone on the planet. As a public, we have to rely on this Mars Perseverance rover, which is even meant to image these sort of things, to get any sort of update as to what this thing is doing is quite sad. So some of my thoughts in this video. Anyways, thank you all so much. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Please smash that like button, help the channel grow. We just passed 500,000 subscribers. Boom shakalaka. That is incredible. Thanks to all your support, I'm able to do this day in.
Ready? Yep.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. 10. Ground control 9, to Major Tom.
8, 7, 6,
Commencing countdown, engines on.
3, 2,
Check ignition, and may God's love be with you.
Lift off.
This is ground control to Major Tom. You freely made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirt you wear. Now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare. This is Major Tom to ground control. I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way. And the stars look very different today. For here am I sitting in a tin can, far above the world. Planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing I can do. Though I've passed 100,000 miles, I'm feeling very still, and I think my spaceship knows which way to go. Tell my wife I love her very much as she knows. Ground control to Major Tom, your circuit's dead. There's something wrong. Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear? Am I floating round my tin can, far above the moon? Planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing I can do.
Thanks. Thank you.
Let me start here because this one stopped me in my tracks, man. President Trump was just asking about pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell's, Jeffrey Epstein's partner in crime. And instead of saying absolutely not, he says, well, I got to talk to the DOJ, man. Let's play it. Let's see it.
Say it.
The Supreme Court is back and said
Yeah.
that they rejected today an appeal by Ghislaine Maxwell to overturn her conviction. That means her only chance of getting out of prison is a pardon from you. Is that something you're...
Who are we talking about?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
You know, I haven't heard the name in so long. I can say this, that I'd have to take a look at it. I would have to take a look. Did they reject that?
She wanted to appeal her conviction.
And what happened?
They said that they were not going to hear her appeal.
I see. Well, I'll take a look at it. I will speak to the DOJ. I wouldn't consider it or not consider it. I don't know anything about it. So, but I will speak to the DOJ.
Why would she be a candidate for clemency, sir?
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to speak to the DOJ. I'll look at it.
That means it's not off the table.
I have a lot of people have asked me for pardons. I call him Puff Daddy has asked me for a pardon.
But she was convicted of child sex trafficking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to take a look at it. I'd have to ask DOJ. I didn't know they rejected it. I didn't know she was even.
Stop right there, man. That shouldn't even be a question. Why would the idea of pardoning a convicted child trafficker accomplice even be a freaking discussion? This is exactly how the deep state survives, man. Minimum security prison deals, quiet transfers, good behavior perks. The system protects us all while the public gets crumbs. And the thing is that recently Trump was asked about things going on in Ukraine, and he pretended he didn't know about it. And the journalist asked him the question, said, well, does normally things happen behind your back with it under your command? And he said, no, I know about everything that's happening. So that means that he knows about this, but he's kind of deflecting the question. Okay. And we can look at a historical parallel here. We look at Nixon's silent pardons. We've seen this movie before, man. Back in the 1970s, Nixon's Watergate cronies didn't vanish into obscurity. They got wrist slaps, commutations, and sweetheart deals. The elite protected their own, just like they did with Jeffrey Epstein back in the day, because when one domino falls, the whole structure risks collapse. Then it was office break-ins, now it's trafficking rings. But the pattern is the same, man. The bigger the crime, the softer the punishment. If you're in the club. You and I are not part of that club, and we get gaslit. It's boring. It's a hoax. Now, speaking of the system protecting itself and why you're here, new higher resolution footage has surfaced of the Charlie Kirk incident, man, the assassination. I reviewed the new angles, and it shows very well the shirt ballooning out, fabric inflating, and even his necklace dislodging. Now, I'm going to break this down for you, analyze it, because the physics matter. You're talking a high velocity round, whether 5.56, 7.62, or 30.6, whatever you want. It produces a localized penetration channel. It tears a tiny hole, right? If he was shot in the shirt, you may see the shirt rip, but he was obviously shot in the neck, so there was not that, but you would just see and then the outward balloon-like expansion across the torso. That's not how ballistic trauma works, okay? A full-power, high-velocity cartridge, using this type of rifle, you're looking at a typical load of 196 to 200 grain bullet at 2,500 to 2,700 feet per second at muzzle. At 200 yards, the velocity of steel may be 2,300 to 2,400 feet per second of energy. So 2,300 to 2,500 foot-pounds. In other words, it's basically, being a 30-06 class, is designed to punch through heavy materials, bones, everything, right? Now, what I'm going to show you here is you can see the balloon effect within his shirt. Now, the other day, if you hadn't watched my channel, I would encourage you to go back to the videos, because I showed the frontal. Now, I'm not showing any actual video here because I got nailed the other day for this. Because if I was a lefty showing this, it'd be fine. But because I speak truth, I have no masters, by the way, none. We'll get into that too. But what you're seeing is a textbook signature of an outward pressure event. In plain language, gas displacement from underneath the shirt, right? It's being pressurized. That's the calling card of a pyrotechnic squib, CO2 burst, or micro detonation device concealed under clothing. Now, the secondary motion, and I'm going to get into this. So if you want to see the real video, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to post it on my Instagram story. Go follow me on Instagram. I'm going to put on the story because I did not want to post this video. I hadn't posted any of the video because just out of respect, man, One to Charlie Kirk, his family, and then my viewers who don't want to see this type of thing. But I'm going to post on the story. You don't see any gore or anything. You're just going to see the reaction of the shirt. But I'm going to post it on the story because I can't post it here. And hopefully you can respect that. But in the video, you're going to see his necklace ejecting. I can't show that part here, but in this image here is where his necklace is ejecting. Now, a lot of people were saying the other day to me in the first video, oh, that's his necklace like ringing around his shirt. It's not true. The necklace had already ejected by that time. Okay. Right. This would, and the necklace ejecting would be consistent with a like a blast wave, not a kinetic bullet strike. Rifle fire does not knock jewelry off sideways. Okay. But micro explosives will. A bullet doesn't create a directional puff that moves hair like this. Look at this. The first shot is right before with his hair down. The second shot is hair up. Okay. That puff coming from his shirt, making his hair go up. Nobody caught this. I'm the first person that I've seen that talked about the hair puffing on the back of his neck. Now that would only happen if the round grazed the scalp, passing extremely close in open air, not necessarily touching the individual. In other words, what you're watching is a volumetric gas expansion, not a tensile tear. Maybe a controlled explosive displacement, not ballistic penetration, right? And again, I can't even show the raw sequence here because YouTube will nuke the damn video. The full uncut footage will be posted on my Instagram story. Go see it for yourself and tell me what you think. And again, if you don't want to see it, don't watch my Instagram stories for the next 24 hours. Okay. Don't click my stories for the next day or so. Now, they're claiming this was a 30-06, right? Mauser from 200 yards. Do you know how much energy it still carries at that range? Over 2,000 foot-pounds, right? You don't just stop that in the neck without an exit. Could it be fragmented on the vertebrae? In theory, yes, but you'd expect a catastrophic blowout, not just a frontal neck spray and no exit. To me, it looks like the shirt inflation, the gas pressure release coincides with the hair lift, suggests more so an outward force from beneath the clothing rather than an inbound rifle strike. What this footage shows is the shirt inflation front to front and then back, and you can kind of see this. I think I have a clip here. I think I have an image here. Maybe I don't have it. I thought I had it, but maybe I do. No, I don't have it. But you can see it kind of starting in the front, okay? You can see it kind of starting in the front. Then the necklace will eject, then hair movement. So it's kind of a ripple effect in this direction, is what you'll see in slow motion. The footage is slowed down. It still looks like a blast event, not a textbook rifle impact. And so really the physics of it just does not add up. Now, if we also look at another historical parallel, look at Franz Ferdinand, the propaganda setup, and history rhymes again. When Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in 1914, the actual event was messy, man. Multiple attackers, grenades, gunfire, confusion. But the propaganda machine cleaned it all up in a neat little story to spark World War I. Now you have to ask about this event right now, why this happened, because the details didn't matter then. What mattered was the narrative. And just like back then, what we're seeing now is the raw footage telling one story, while the official narrative demands we believe another. And it's happening constantly. What we have here, something I've noticed, Officer Tatum has taken it upon himself to become the spokesperson for Israel. I still follow him, but I used to like the guy, but daily he does this. And he brought this lady here, Sarah Adams, on here. Now, I don't know her. I don't really know anybody that knows her. People that worked in the same place don't know her. So anyway, the thing is that I'm going to tell you right now, just for GP, is that anyone who screams a specific message constantly, there's probably a reason for it. And you're going to see that later on in this video. I have some real evidence here in a moment. But when someone constantly speaks the same message, saying this one enemy, I'm not saying these people aren't the enemy, but she keeps saying the same group of people's enemy, they're the only enemy. Well, who's that people the enemy to? Well, the same people Officer Tatum tends to stand up for on a daily basis, take it upon himself to be the spokesperson for them. Even so much so they've pretty much got it. He posted this. He said, I truly admire this young man. This is the new guy that's supposedly taken over for Charlie Kirk. This guy is about as soft as frozen yogurt, man. He's got more sugar in his shoes than most of you got in his pantry, in your pantry. But he's saying he's extremely proud of this guy. Well, that guy is also a mouthpiece for a certain the greatest ally. You have to ask yourself, why would someone keep saying this certain narrative? And the fact is when they change completely to this one narrative. Okay. Now, and just so you know, I'm not bought and paid for by anybody. I don't take money from anybody. And I think it's pretty apparent because, man, I kind of change course all the time, dude. I keep one thing: freedom, and the Constitution, and obviously Christ. Jesus Christ is the Lord. That's my main thing, right? Jesus Christ is Lord, the Constitution, and freedom. Okay, that's it. I'll deviate from the people that I have supported before if they go against the grain, man. The other thing is I'm supported by you, by my company, Black Scout Survival. You buy my products, which I try to make the absolute freaking best to support you. And that's the thing. You support me. That's what supports this operation. And I also work for a living. I work for a living, guys. So anyway, I'm a real working man. But I won't take a handout, man. Ukraine media try to get a hold of me with government. It's the government media. I did a video about this the other day. They try to get a hold of me, trying to offer me to speak in favor of them. And I said, no. I've said no to a lot of people. I've had all kinds of people come out of work trying to get a hold of me, man. I won't sign a contract. I'm not getting any deals, none of that. I'm not playing those games, right? And kind of speaking along those lines, that we got, if none of that was enough, what we've seen so far is Candace Owens has released alleged text messages or a group chat from Charlie Kirk just 48 hours before his death. Now, in this text, he says he lost a major donor, about $2 million a year, because he wouldn't cancel Tucker Carlson. Now, I can't speak to these texts or group chats, but she posted them, so we'll talk about them, right? Now, in here, he specifically refers to Jewish donors and says they're pressuring him that he won't be bullied and that it's leaving him no choice but to lead the pro-Israel cause, right? So that came out, and then you can go along lines, and around that same time frame as this came out, it said that Robert J. Shillman, a conservative tech billionaire, who two associates described as a father figure to Mr. Kirk, 2 days before Mr. Kirk's death, Mr. Shillman angrily questioned Mr. Kirk for giving a platform to Mr. Carlson and informed him he was withdrawing his $2 million pledge to Turning Point. Okay. So that kind of happened. Okay. Now, Mr. Shillman made no mention of any discord between them, but said Turning Point USA without a leader, it has nowhere to go. So, they appointed a leader within a few days. And this is not going to be a popular thing, but hey, I'm just going by what Charlie Kirk said. I was not a Charlie Kirk follower before, but I've consumed a lot of his content lately. And one thing he spoke about quite often, and what I saw, I was actually going to post a clip of it, but you can go type it in, Boss Babes. He talks quite seriously about women being home and taking care of children. And you have to ask yourself, who's going to be taking care of the children now that the wife is now the CEO? And maybe he did have that in his plans, his arrangement, if something happened to him. I can't say, I haven't seen that. But the fact of the matter is, it kind of goes along with his ideology that he spoke about all these years. If I look at a man that says one message and then another happens after his death, I have to ask, well, why was he saying this all this time? Is this rules for thee or not for me, or does someone change his message? I don't know. But you do have to ask yourself that, why he was opposed to women in that capacity. He said, he believed in traditional women, gender roles, and so who's going to be taking care of the children now that the especially the father's gone out of the home? You just have to ask yourself. Now, I'm not here to talk bad about anyone, especially not Charlie Kirk, because he's gone. He was a patriot. But I do step back and think about what this text message implies, man. These texts are real. This group chat's real. It's an admission that support for a cause can be bought and withdrawn like a stock position. And that is an activism. That's a shield arrangement, man. I'm only promoting this of who's funding me. And that's exactly why it's hard to trust people in this business, because money warps loyalty, man. Money buys silence. And when the funding dries up, the principles dry up too. You know, I'm just saying what it is, man. That I don't like the way that text is not it's not favorable. It says that my loyalty can be bought, essentially. Obviously it couldn't be, because he went against him and still was going to say Tucker Carlson, but was going to be there. So I do commend Charlie for standing up for his beliefs and his opinions. And he even said, I may bring Candace on. So you have to give the man that. He was willing to lose $2 million to stand up for that, right? Now, being that he did that before the loss, that speaks volumes to him as a man. Now, if it came after a loss, I would say, kind of like what I said before, that loyalty can be bought and paid for. It doesn't look like that he's that way to me. It looked like that he is willing to stand on principles, stand on business, and lose money and not care. And matter of fact, I'll keep doing whatever I'm doing. That's what I got from it, you know, and I can definitely respect that. So he seemed to be a man that truthfully lived with his on his values. And yeah. But, you know, this came out with Anna Paulina Luna. She's out here saying that the assassination may be tied to foreign government funding. Well, I was saying that other day too, but she says a different one. She says, pointing the finger at China rather than our greatest ally. Check it out.
There's been a lot of questions as to whether there was foreign government involvement.
In which one?
In the assassination of Charlie Kirk, right? Okay. So, like, we're going to address these theories right now. Back during the ICE riots, do you remember all of that at the beginning of the year?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were like, where are all of a sudden these big violent riots coming from? Who's funding these organizations?
Well, this is something we've always talked about, guys, is that NGOs and how this works is, you know, the CIA, our own government does this same sort of thing. They'll go fund these groups and then countries to try to overthrow the country. So why would you think that it wouldn't happen here?
We found out that there was a foreign funding tied to an individual by the name of Neville Singham, who's a multi-billionaire. And he made his billions by working with the communist Chinese government. And he would and he's not a registered agent, a foreign agent, which is a FARA violation. So he's taking these millions, funneling it into organizations like the Party of Socialism and Liberation, who then in turn create these very radicalized movements, but they're not even American in theory.
George Soros or any of these other clowns, same playbook.
Or funded by American people. They're actually funded.
She's wrong there. She's wrong there, because a lot of USA goes to groups like these, and we wind up funding our own demise. So she's wrong there.
By foreign governments. The irony in all this is that Neville Singham, not just to Mamdani's election, so like Jews from Mamdani, but he actually also has ties to funding the Party of Socialism, the Salt Lake City Queer Group, which is now being investigated with former knowledge on whether or not they knew Charlie would be assassinated, who had ties to the shooter.
So I talked about this other week, man, and that group is actually not a Chinese-backed group. That group is, she's saying it's funded by Beijing is what she's getting to. That group is actually what I found was funded by Iran, and we know that everything that happens from Iran actually don't come from Iran.
So I do think that there's a foreign funding tie, but the question is which government, and I think it's tied to the Chinese.
So she said the Chinese. Nah, I don't buy that for 1 second, man. You know, you can judge the clip for yourself, but this is the kind of noise that fills the vacuum when no one trusts the official story, and China's the boogeyman. Every group blames its favorite enemy. Everyone points his finger at foreign actors. Meanwhile, the actual truth gets buried. And USA funds most of it. You know, we've seen that. They've tried to cover that up, but this is why I keep hammering the point, man. When everything from donors to government investigations to video evidence looks choreographed, You aren't living inside a narrative war, man. You're not in a news cycle, right? You're living in a narrative war. You're not a news cycle. But the other thing is you're living in the freaking matrix, okay? And the bottom line is, if you even look at this, like I saw this guy's post the other day for these aerial photographs, 3 days after Charlie Kirk's assassination, they literally bricked over the exact location of the crime scene. I mean, that's just totally normal, right? Is that not crazy? Is this not crazy? Look at this. I mean, 3 days after. Doesn't make sense. The other thing is, I started looking for today where Charlie Kirk was buried. And maybe they're keeping that a secret. It's quite possible, but there's a lot of people calling to find out where, right? Sorry. Phoenix Church field calls from people who mistakenly believe Kirk will be buried there. So this church is saying that they're getting calls because somehow it was alleged that he was getting buried there. And so people are wanting to bring flowers or wanting to send donations to the church and so on. But they said, no, it's not us. And then that the only church that I saw that had any kind of official kind of news is this Hanson Mortuary. It was a mortuary, it's not even a church. Hanson Mortuary in Phoenix. And they don't have a grave site as of now that I've saw, but they set up a memorial. So you could go put flowers and stuff by a Charlie Kirk sign. So very strange, right? All of it's strange. And the thing is that when you look at all this stuff, man, it kind of all corresponds together, man. You got Trump hedging on Maxwell, and you have to ask yourself why. Well, went to that interview. Trump had nothing to do with it. And I'm not saying Trump did, but it's just odd timing, man, right? Then we have the strange physics of the Kirk footage, the donor text, and now the China narrative. Each piece of on is weird, but if you put them all together, man, you see the pattern: a system that protects insiders, punishes outsiders, and keeps you guessing with half-truths. Again, guys, if you want to see the raw footage, I'm going to go put on my Instagram right now on the stories. Watch it and tell me if it's a bullet or a blast. I'm not saying it's either. I don't know. I'm just a guy who's trying to on the search for truth. And regardless of what happened, the story doesn't add up. The narrative was cut too quickly. They're saying that there's a high likelihood that Tyler Robinson will get away with this based on just evidence already. The case is in the beginning stages, and they're already talking about him getting away with. The prosecution said they don't have enough. They don't have any photos with him with a rifle. They have no clean photos that it's him. Locations, the text between him and the boyfriend have no date stamp, so obviously it was just typed up somewhere. None of it makes sense. And so when nothing makes sense, you wind up asking questions. All I know is that this does not look like your typical rifle shot. It looks like a blast. And I'd like to know your thoughts. Again, I don't have all the answers. I don't know one way or the other, but I'm saying what it looks like to me. And just physics alone, it just doesn't make sense from their official story. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you hanging out with me. Make sure you stay frosty, stay strapped, and always stay dangerous. Black Scout out.
2, 3. 4, 2.
Steve, how are you? Glad you're so excited to see me today. Alrighty, good afternoon everybody and happy Monday. Let's get to it, and we'll begin with a few scheduling announcements today. President Trump will be hosting the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney tomorrow for a working meeting here at the White House. On Thursday, the president will host his 8th cabinet meeting alongside his incredible team. Also on Thursday afternoon, President Trump will host the president of Finland, Alexander Stubb, for a working meeting here at the White House. The president also wanted me to relay his congratulations to Japan for electing their next prime minister, a highly respected person who also happens to be the first female to hold the position for our great ally. While President Trump continues to negotiate peace deals, meets with world leaders, and celebrates the 250th birthday of our United States Navy, as you saw he and the First Lady do just yesterday, Democrats, unfortunately, are continuing to play political games. And we are now in day 6 of the Democrat federal government shutdown. Millions of American federal workers are under enormous financial stress as a result, wondering how they will pay their bills and take care of their families. If the Democrats do not vote to open the government tonight, federal workers will not receive their next full paycheck. Additionally, the special supplemental nutrition program for women, infants, and children will run out of federal money very soon. This program provides vouchers to buy infant formula, fresh fruits and vegetables, and other healthy foods for low-income families. It can be easily fully funded if Democrats simply vote tonight to reopen the government. Also, our incredible military service members who risk their lives to preserve and defend our country are now working without pay and will miss their next paychecks if this Democrat shutdown does not end tonight. The Republican-backed clean and nonpartisan funding bill fully funds this important food aid program, gets our troops paid, and reopens the government. So all of this begs the question, what is the Democrat ongoing shutdown truly about? The sad truth, we believe, is that the Democrats intentionally shut down the government and are inflicting this pain on American citizens to try and demand free health care for illegal aliens. Of course, this is an indefensible and truly radical policy to be in favor of, let alone to use as the primary reason to shut down the United States government. So the Democrats and their allies are desperately lying about their true motivations. We have to set the record straight with the facts so the American people understand what's really at play here. House Republicans passed a clean and nonpartisan funding bill to keep the government open and ensure our troops and other hardworking Americans are paid. Every single House Democrat except one voted against this clean and nonpartisan funding bill. Senate Republicans have subsequently tried to pass this same clean funding bill 4 separate times, and they will do so again tonight, to fully pass it to be sent to the president's desk for signature. And the president is ready to sign this bill to reopen the government as soon as it is sent to his desk. Yet every single Senate Democrat except 3 have voted against this clean and nonpartisan funding bill. The Democrats' current position is that the only way the American government can reopen is if illegal aliens can get free health care. Don't take my word for it, just look at what's inside of the Democrats' proposal to reopen the government. Their funding proposal would result in nearly $200 billion spent on health care for illegal aliens and other non-citizens over the next decade. To put this in perspective, $200 billion is enough money to fund the entire Children's Health Insurance Program, which provides health insurance to low-income children and women. Under the Democrats' proposal, the millions of illegal aliens who improperly were granted asylum and paroled under the Biden administration would once again be allowed to receive Medicaid benefits. It does not end there. The Democrat proposal would also require Medicaid to pay more for emergency care provided to illegal aliens than it does for American patients who are disabled, elderly, or children. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. The Democrat Party has unfortunately closed our government, costing Americans their jobs, threatening our military readiness, harming our economy, and causing chaos, all to help the illegals who broke into our country. Instead of holding illegal aliens accountable and removing them from our country, which is what this administration is trying to do every day, the Democrats want to give them the free benefits paid for by the American taxpayer. Democrats in 2025 are for illegal aliens first and Americans last. This is the reality we are unfortunately facing right now in Washington, D.C. President Trump and Republicans will not give in to these radical demands. The president and Republicans have a sacred responsibility to serve and protect the interests of their constituents, the American people. That's why we are backing a clean and nonpartisan funding bill with no strings attached to reopen the government. Democrats should do what they did 13 separate times under Joe Biden and vote for this exact same type of funding bill. Now the Senate will vote tonight for the 5th time to reopen the government on the 6th day of this shutdown. All we need are an additional 5 Democrat senators to end this madness and vote for the clean funding bill to reopen the government. If you are an American watching at home right now, call your Democrat senators and tell them to do the right thing and end this shutdown. With that, I will take your questions. Here in our new media seat today, we have Elizabeth Mitchell from the Daily Signal. Elizabeth, thanks for being here, and please kick us off.
Thank you for having me. I have 2 questions. First, President Trump told reporters yesterday that firings of federal employees are taking place right now. In which departments have people already been fired from their federal jobs due to the shutdown?
The president was referring to the hundreds of thousands of federal workers who have been furloughed as a result of this federal government shutdown, both here at the White House and across the entire federal government. At agencies across the board, there are federal workers who are staying home. Many of them work in the White House. You know them. Some of them sit just behind me at those desks. They are unable to show up to work right now because the Democrats chose to shut the government down. And so we're already, unfortunately, seeing the consequence of this. And then, of course, the Office of Management and Budget is continuing to work with agencies on who, unfortunately, is going to have to be laid off if this shutdown continues.
And Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said the FDA was required by federal law to approve the new abortion pill last week. Is the administration considering steps to undo this in light of requests from pro-life Congress members and organizations?
I think Secretary Kennedy and the Department of Health and Human Services, as I addressed in the briefing last week, were following the law, and we will continue to do so. As I said last week as well, it's not an endorsement of this drug by any means. It's just a law that they were following. Jennifer.
We heard you say that you want people to call their Democratic senators. Is the president calling Democratic senators himself? Can you say what he's doing today to resolve the shutdown?
Yep, I was just in the Oval Office. He was on the phone with Speaker Johnson. He's also spoken with the Senate Majority Leader, who are in touch with, of course, moderate Democrats and Democrats across the board, who we understand hopefully want to do the right thing by their constituents to reopen the government. So the president is being kept very well apprised of the ongoing shutdown on Capitol Hill. And of course, his position is very clear. There's nothing to negotiate, just reopen the government, and then we can talk about all the important issues facing our country.
So he hasn't called specific members of Congress?
Not to my knowledge, no.
And then on the Affordable Care Act, is he willing to give more, to share more on what he'd like to negotiate on the Affordable Care Act later? Is he willing to say specifically what he would like and when?
But look, the president is definitely committed to fixing and improving our healthcare system. You saw it again last week when he had one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world coming into the Oval Office and promising to lower drug prices by 200, 300, 100% in many cases for various types of drugs for American patients. That is a huge fix to a broken system that has been ripping off the American people for far too long. So the president's very committed to this. But right now, we need to reopen the federal government, and the president is remaining very firm in that position. Catherine.
If the vote fails in the Senate today to reopen the government, would that trigger layoffs?
Look, again, we hope that the vote will not fail because this administration wants to reopen the government. We don't want to see people laid off. But unfortunately, if this shutdown continues, layoffs are going to be an unfortunate consequence of that.
Is there timing for when that would happen?
Well, look, we'll see how the vote goes tonight.
Is the White House floating a proposal to cap Obamacare subsidies by denying them to new enrollees?
I have not seen a proposal like that. Emily.
Thanks, Caroline. The president said yesterday he was considering a phase 2 approach to Venezuela. Is the president considering U.S. boots on the ground or any kind of support of overthrowing Maduro?
I won't get into any specific proposals that are being considered by the president and his national security team, but I think we've been pretty transparent and clear in the administration's view of the illegitimate Maduro regime, and the president has taken very unprecedented, tough action to end the illegal trafficking of illicit drugs into our country from Maduro's illegitimate regime.
Caroline.
Danny, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. The French government has collapsed again for the 4th time in a year. And I was just wondering if there's any concern in the White House about the kind of ongoing political crisis there. Any thought about whether the President Trump's good friend, President Macron, should either call elections or even resign over that?
Well, I can tell you the White House and the National Security Council are very much aware of this situation, but I think it would be imprudent of me to weigh in on French internal politics from the podium, so I will reserve comment on that. Behind you, yes.
What is President Trump's expectations for talks today and I guess this week in Egypt? And is there a new timeline that the president is giving all sides to reach an agreement?
Yes, there are technical talks happening right now in Egypt amongst Special Envoy Witkoff and Mr. Kushner, as well as the respective parties from all sides. What we saw take place on Friday, and I have not commented on that from the podium yet, is truly remarkable. You've seen all sides of this conflict agree that this war needs to end and agree to the 20-point framework that President Trump proposed. It's an incredible achievement, and the administration is working very hard to move the ball forward as quickly as we can. The president wants to see a ceasefire. He wants to see the hostages released, and the technical teams are discussing that as we speak to ensure that the environment is perfect to release those hostages. They're going over the lists of both the Israeli hostages and also the political prisoners who will be released, and those talks are underway, and the president is very much on the ball and is being apprised of this situation.
The president has given a Sunday evening deadline. Obviously, the negotiations have extended that, I imagine. What is that new deadline? Does the president have a time frame in mind to see this phase implemented?
Well, the Sunday evening deadline was to hear back from Hamas on the proposal one way or another. And of course, on Friday, Hamas put out a very clear statement in the president's view that they accept the president's framework, and that's why those technical talks are now underway. But again, we want to move very quickly on this, and the president wants to see the hostages released as soon as possible. Steve.
How long do you expect those technical talks to last, Caroline?
I don't want to draw a red line up here, Steve. Of course, it's very important, as I just mentioned, that we get this done quickly. That's how the president's team feels, so we can get some momentum, get the hostages out, and then move to the next part of this, which is really ensuring that we can create a lasting and durable peace in Gaza and ensure that Gaza is a place that no longer threatens the security of Israel or the United States.
What do you expect to be on the agenda for the president's meeting with the Prime Minister of Canada tomorrow?
I'm sure trade will be a topic of discussion tomorrow, and all of the other issues that are facing both Canada and the United States. I know the president looks forward to having that discussion with Carney in the Oval Office. Caitlin.
Thanks, Caroline. I have two questions. On the layoff of federal workers, potentially, the president said yesterday that Democrats will be to blame if federal workers lose their jobs. Historically, though, in past shutdowns, workers have been furloughed, but they have not been laid off en masse. So wouldn't that be the president's call to lay people off?
As I've said repeatedly, Caitlin, this conversation about layoffs would not be happening right now if the Democrats did not vote to shut the government down. And as I also said last briefing as well, we are $37 trillion in debt, and the government is not receiving any cash. So someone has to look at the balance sheet and be good stewards of the American taxpayer dollar. And layoffs are an unfortunate consequence of that.
First term, for example.
Well, as I'm telling you now, this administration is focusing on checking the balance sheet and ensuring we're doing the right thing by the American taxpayer. And again, these conversations about layoffs would not be happening in the White House today if not for the Democrat shutdown. And they have a choice to change that. They have another opportunity tonight to do the right thing to reopen the government. Joey.
Judge over the weekend. Sorry, my second question. A federal judge over the weekend that the president had appointed to the bench in his first term in office basically argued that he could not deploy other states' National Guards to Portland. Basically said that it was untethered, his argument, to what is actually happening on the ground. Which local officials in Portland have said that the National Guard is needed there?
With all due respect to that judge, I think her opinion is untethered in reality and in the law. The president is using his authority as Commander-in-Chief, U.S. Code 12406, which clearly states that the president has the right to call up the National Guard in cases where he deems it's appropriate. And if you look at what has happened in Portland, Oregon, for more than 100 nights, I was talking to our law enforcement team about it this morning, for more than 100 days, night after night after night, the ICE facility has been really under siege by these anarchists outside. They have been disrespecting law enforcement. They've been inciting violence. We saw, again, a guillotine rolled out in front of this federal building. And so the president wants to ensure that our federal buildings and our assets are protected. And that's exactly what he's trying to do. And ultimately, in the case in Los Angeles, that judge ruled in the Ninth Circuit, that panel of judges ruled that those troops could remain and that the president was well within his authority to do so. So we are appealing that decision. As you know, we expect a hearing on it pretty quickly, and we're very confident in the president's legal authority to do this, and we're very confident we will win on the merits of the law.
But no local officials that you can point to that have said we need the National Guard? Because I spoke to the police chief of Portland last week. He said that the president's claims just don't match up with what's happening on the ground.
I would encourage you as a reporter to go on the ground and to take a look at it for yourself, because there's been many members of the press, not press in this room, but independent journalists, some of whom we'll be inviting to the White House very soon to share their stories, because they have been in the middle of these riots and they have witnessed the anarchy that is taking place night after night. It's on video. You should play it on your show. You have a great opportunity on prime time on CNN to show your audience. Yeah, but you're probably talking to partisan Democrat officials who are opposed to everything this president does. You should also ask the people who live in Portland. We've actually heard from many members of the community who have said that this is complete civil disobedience. It's a mess. It's been loud. It's been troubling for neighbors in the community who are just trying to live peacefully. And these people are not there to peacefully protest. They are there to cause mayhem and havoc.
Yeah, Caroline.
Stephen, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. Two questions. First, do you have a reaction to reports that thousands of Cuban troops are deployed alongside Russia fighting in Ukraine? And on a very different matter, the president last week floated in an interview with our colleague Daniel from One America a rebate for tariffs of up to $2,000 per person. Is that plan contingent on the Supreme Court's upcoming ruling on the legality of the tariffs? And is the White House preparing for legislation to make that happen?
Sure. On the first point, I have not seen that report, Stephen, but I'll check in with our national security team after this and we'll get you an update. To your second point about the tariff rebates, I think it's an idea that the president has discussed and floated with his team of advisors, but no decision has been firmly made at this point in time. Why don't we go to the back? Owen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
A few days ago, President Trump demanded Jay Jones of Virginia get out of the race for condoning political violence in a text message against a Republican politician a few years ago. He hasn't left the race. He hasn't dropped out. What's the president's reaction?
Well, as you know, I'm not at liberty to discuss political races from the podium. I think the president himself made his position very clear, and I think anyone could agree the messages that were sent by this Democrat nominee for Attorney General in Virginia are really shocking, alarming, and completely unacceptable. He was threatening to kill his opponent and his opponent's children, and that type of rhetoric has zero place in our country, and the president was absolutely right to condemn that.
One more, please.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. The Democrats have questioned and scrutinized the president's comments about using potentially the military, American cities, as training grounds for the military. And when you look at Portland, Chicago, local and state officials say that their local law enforcement is able to handle the situations, these protests on the ground. The president says that Portland is burning, using that as justification for the National Guard in Portland. But when you look here in Washington, D.C., the president just last week said it is now a completely safe city, and there are still National Guard members on the streets that are not involved in ICE activities. Can you provide the justification for the White House here in Washington, D.C., why the National Guard members continue to be out on the streets?
Because Washington, D.C. has invited the National Guard here. Why? Because the mayor is doing the right thing, unlike mayors in other cities like Portland, as Caitlin and others have pointed out, who refuse to see that there are positive results from when local law enforcement works with federal law enforcement to do the right thing on behalf of their citizens. And Washington, D.C. is no doubt a safer city right now today than it was a few months ago when President Trump started this initiative to make D.C. safe again. And the National Guard is still here because the president and the mayor agree that it's a good thing for the city. Just like you're seeing in Memphis, for instance. We'll have National Guard deployed to Memphis. We have federal agents who are on the ground working with state and local law enforcement. The state police in Tennessee are part of this effort. The local metropolitan police in Memphis are part of this effort. State and local law enforcement and federal law enforcement enforcement should be working together. And it's a shame that we see in some cities across the country that their mayors are just simply refusing to cooperate because they don't like Donald Trump. And that's what this boils down to. And I don't think any American would disagree that Chicago needs more law enforcement reinforcements, that they need more resources. Look at this headline from over the weekend. At least 30 people shot during the weekend in Democrat-run Chicago. 5 of them were killed in one weekend. This is completely unacceptable, and the president wants to make American cities safer, and he's willing to work with anyone to do it.
If the courts allow you to ultimately send in the National Guard into Chicago and Portland, do Democrats not have reason to be concerned that there are long-term plans by this administration to keep U.S. military or the National Guard in American cities, like what we're seeing here in Washington?
Why should they be concerned about the federal government offering help to make their cities a safer place? They should be concerned about this. They should be concerned about the fact that people in their cities right now are being gunned down every single night. And the president, all he's trying to do is fix it. And there has been a complete smear campaign by the Democrats and the media, quite frankly. I was reading Political Playbook this morning, one of the most inside the Beltway newsletters you can find. And you guys are framing this like the president wants to take over the American cities with the military. The president wants to help these local leaders who have been completely ineffective in securing their own cities. And we have already seen there's a positive formula for that. Look at Washington, D.C. The murder rate has declined significantly. Our streets are safer. People who live here feel safer. All of you in this room, I know you do, you just won't admit it. And it's a proven system that works, and the president wants to make America's cities safe again. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Michael.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions, if I may.
Because the mayor wants them. Michael.
These talks in Egypt, if Hamas does agree to relinquish power and give it up, cede power to this transitional technocratic government, if that does happen, would the Trump administration then recognize a Palestinian state?
Look, I don't want to get ahead of the technical talks right now, Michael. They're extremely sensitive. They're taking place, again, as we speak, and there's a lot of, there's many things to discuss, of course. This is hopefully we expect and we hope going to be one of the greatest peace deals this world has ever seen. And the Trump administration is working diligently and working very hard to get there. And as I said, Friday, all terms agreed. We have the Arab countries who are working with us. Of course, Israel has been incredible in cooperating with the president's plan and agreeing to it. And we're very hopeful, and we expect that to continue.
You tweeted about this over the weekend.
Thank you. I was going to you in the blue shirt and tie.
Thank you,
yes,
Caroline.
You're welcome.
The Daily Mail. Today, the Supreme Court declined to hear Ghislaine Maxwell's appeal. Will Trump rule out granting her clemency? Is that something the White House is considering?
It's not something I've heard discussed, and we don't comment on clemency requests that may or may not have been made, but I'm certainly not tracking that one at this point in time.
Caroline.
Jordan, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. So we're talking about these radical groups in Portland and Chicago. I know the president has spoken about potentially going after George Soros with RICO charges and for funding all of this violence. Has there been any update on that? And also, is the administration looking into the other nonprofits, maybe taking away their 501c3 status for funding this violence? And one more question.
Sure. The financial backing of these groups, particularly Antifa, is certainly something the administration is looking into aggressively. And the federal government has never really been mobilized or tasked with doing that. So we're kind of kickstarting that into gear. The FBI is working on it alongside the White House's Homeland Security Task Force. We have our intelligence community looking into this as well. And even the Secretary of Treasury is involved with these matters since they are financial in nature. And we will continue to get to the bottom of who is funding these organizations in this organized anarchy against our country and our government. It's a question the American people have been begging the answer for many years, and we're committed to uncovering it. And when we do, I'm sure you'll be one of the first people to know.
Separately, Caroline.
Thank you. So Gaza, under the president's plan, is going to be governed by a transitional governance of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee made up of qualified Palestinians and international experts. Now, given how radicalized the Palestinian population is in Gaza and in the West Bank, can you offer some insight or guidance into who are some of these Palestinians that are going to be considered for leadership roles in Gaza and where you're going to be finding them, and do you have any names?
We're not quite there yet, Jonathan. The president believes peace is possible in Gaza, and that's why he presented this detailed and comprehensive plan. The first step of that is securing a ceasefire and releasing the hostages, and then those conversations about ensuring a durable and lasting peace can continue. But what do you need to have peace in a region like Gaza that's been war-torn for far too long? You need security guarantees and you need good governance. And so those will be two of the priorities that this administration is focused on.
If I may, the president has said he wants the government to reopen this week in a deal. What's going to happen by the end of the week if there's no deal? What's the White House prepared to do?
With no deal with what?
To reopen the government.
Look, as I said, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of pain inflicted. There already is on the American public, on our troops who are not being paid, again, on women and young children who depend on critical food assistance. We hate to see this. And in fact, the Office of Management and Budget is trying to do everything they can to find funds to get out the door for these vulnerable populations in our country. Again, we shouldn't be having to do that. The Democrats have a chance to change course tonight. I believe the vote's taking place at 6:30, and we urge Democrat senators to vote to reopen the government and to do the right thing. Thanks, guys.
Venezuela is about to go down. We see multiple open source intelligence agencies reporting that the U.S. government is fully prepared to whitewash the entire Venezuelan government out of their power structure. They want a new clean slate inside of that country because the U.S. government is going to need South American oil and allies in the region to fight against China. Listen to what the Department of War has to say about the organizations of terror and trafficking that they are going after.
You have said the strikes will continue against narco-terrorists. Every video of a cartel boat blowing up it is foreign terrorist organization movie sequel. But how is that legal?
Oh, we have every authorization needed. These are designated as foreign terrorist organizations. They're a threat to the homeland. They're a threat to the American people. They've been poisoning our people for far too long. And President Trump said no more. They're effectively designated just like Al-Qaeda, which if I saw Al-Qaeda in the conduct of doing something that was going to threaten and kill Americans, I had the right to do that in Iraq and Afghanistan. If you're in our hemisphere before, we know where they're going. We know what they're carrying. We know how many people are on that boat. And that's why these are legitimate, clean kills in pursuit of defending the homeland.
So guys, I want you to take a little bit of information from this and realize that the U.S. government is fully tied into every spy device that you talk to your family on. Every single metric that they can look into, they are. From how much power you're using, how much data and location information they can gather from your spy devices, also known as your cell phones, they are keyed into everything. Now, the coming civil unrest that we're going to see inside of this country is going to drive a lot of people underground. I've already told you to go gray. Remove any political affiliations from the front of your house. Remove any political affiliations from your vehicles. You are being targeted. And in this morning's video, you saw the cartel literally put hits out on every single person who is pro-Republican presidential administration. They want everybody to be collateral damage for the coming conflict.
And we hope it deters those foreign terrorist organizations from doing it because the American people deserve to be defended.
Listen to this released by the Department of Homeland Security on their official .gov account.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Welcome aboard Ice Air. We hope you enjoy your flight home. Next time, come to America legally or don't come at all. Thank you.
So I don't know whether that actually plays to every group and in every language that gets on an ICE deportation flight, but I think that it should. You're going home. If you want to come back to America again, you do it legally. If you come back as a criminal, you go to prison.
How do you feel about the ICE raids?
The who?
ICE raids.
Like
immigration.
I feel good about them.
Yeah, you want them to crack down?
More, yes.
You do?
Yes, been wanting it for years, all my life.
And what about them, like, roughing people up?
Nah, that shit crazy. Don't put your hands on nobody. That's crazy. Don't hurt nobody. Do it the legal way.
But that's what they're doing, though.
That shit ugly. Then no, I don't feel great about that. I mean, don't hurt nobody. At the same time, get them out of here. Get them all out of here. Please and thank you. Trump 4 more years for that.
Did you
just for that? Just
Did
for
you
that.
vote for him?
No, hell no. I can't vote. I lost my voting rights when I was 22 years old. I apologize.
You went away?
Yeah, for assault and battery.
Now, this guy just gained so much respect from me as an individual. He apologizes for the attack that sent him into the judicial system, into probably prison. He was a felon, so he said he lost his voting rights, his ability to carry a weapon in the defense of himself. He also says Trump should get 4 more years from today for getting illegals and getting criminals out of this country. Everybody seems to know that drug trafficking, child trafficking, and women trafficking takes place every day inside of the USA. It was freedom ground for criminals. And so you look on the streets, and everybody who has rehabilitated themselves, everybody who has moved now towards a higher understanding of this country needing to save itself from the dumpster fire that we were, says this is exactly what we needed. ICE facilities, according to Stephen Miller, properly conduct federal missions in immigration enforcement. The president has undisputed authority under statute and constitution to deploy troops stationed in every state to defend federal facilities from domestic terrorism and violent assault. Now, here's where we're going to get into some ground area problems. People and your children are going to go to these protests, and now they're being labeled as domestic terror elements. They're gathering information that was given to them by labeled and categorized domestic terror organizations. So when your kids get caught up in this, and then when we finally start to see, which I don't want to see, but when we do see the bullets fly, that means this is a war of domestic criminals against the state, and the state will win. We do have some strange weather taking place. Look at this out of a, looks like it came out of Jurassic Park. Absolute catastrophic flooding taking place. This is in Texas, USA. It's being investigated as a possible or a potential sabotage event.
Not just rioters and people that embrace violence to push back on what we're doing in this country. These are Antifa. We have terrorist organizations.
This is the Director of Homeland Security.
And that's what I keep reminding people is we're not just dealing with criminals. We've got networks of cartel members and terrorists that are infiltrating these cities. And every day that we don't bring them to justice, they're recruiting new members, more people to their ranks. And that is why every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, DHS and our officers are working to get them off the streets.
This sure looks like a movie, in my opinion.
Just got back from Memphis. When I tell you, Memphis is a totally different place right now. For real. I did not know that President Trump was sending them guys down there. And when I say it's police everywhere.
Now, you might watch this video and think, oh, this guy's about to knock on President Trump, but listen.
For real, though. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I ain't never seen nothing like this before. Cause I go down there and drop off a load at the hospital. You know, you see your normal scragglies, whatever. You know what I mean? Hospital, I don't know why hospital's always a place where they want police is on every corner. See, I don't go to Chicago, so I wouldn't know that anyway. It was like, yes, crime is slowed down. I mean, it look like a totally different city right now.
When the president of the USA campaigned to make America great again, he meant it from the outside and from within. I know that you're old enough to remember that we were a great country. We were founded on great principles. We wanted to see freedom for all American citizens. And for decades, we had a turning point. This turning point sent us into dictatorship-like activity, where if you bought a pressure cooker and your child a couple of things for their outdoor activities, you were labeled a potential domestic tourist. We have moved into this horrible, crime-ridden country, and there's only one chance to bring it back.
Today, we are signing an executive order aimed at reining in this out-of-control administration. The order establishes ICE-free zones.
Listen to that.
Administration. The order establishes ICE-free zones.
Craziness happening.
These groups, particularly Antifa, is certainly something the administration is looking into aggressively. And the federal government has never really been mobilized or tasked with doing that. So we're kind of kickstarting that into gear. The FBI is working on it alongside the White House's Homeland Security Task Force. We have our intelligence community looking into this as well. And even the Secretary of Treasury is involved with these matters since they are financial in nature. And we will continue to get to the bottom of who is funding these organizations in this organized anarchy against our country and our government. It's a question the American people have been begging the answer for many years. And
oh yeah, folks, back in the protests that took place in the early 2000s, you and I saw that there was a motivation behind getting people to fight in the streets. That motivation must be found. Those political scum and rats must be brought from the shadows into the light of justice and our judicial system. I've got a lot more to cover. Some of it's going to get on tomorrow morning's broadcast. You're watching the original Prepper News channel on YouTube. This is Full Spectrum Survival. My name is Brad. My family bring you this information every day so that you don't have to worry about what's going on and spend 4 hours in anxiety. I'm going to show you in just a couple of minutes. From my family to yours, please stay safe and keep watch.
Everyone, welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Here we're going to use a real-life scenario today as either a teachable moment or a learning opportunity. But what I want you guys all to imagine is you're out with your loved one, driving around on a date night, make a right turn after having a nice dinner at a restaurant downtown, and all of a sudden you have driven into the middle of an Antifa rally. And they, who were not happy before you got there, are even less happy now that you have arrived. It's much like accidentally stepping on a hornet's nest, and now it is buzzing and they're banging away at your car and you don't know what to do, and you and your loved one are both freaking out. What can you do? Not like this would ever happen in America in 2025. Well, of course, one of the things you could do is you could just step on it and go, but that could be a problem. So let's break it all down today. Let's try to do it in a way that makes it easy to understand. So today we're going to spend a few minutes and we're going to talk about what can you do when a mob surrounds your car, part 2. Okay, the video we're doing today is actually a second version of a video that we did way back on October 24th, 2023, using real life examples there. It happens to be the most viewed video in the history of Washington gun law, so thank you for everyone who has watched that video. We went back and watched it because it was picking up some activity in the last couple of weeks because, well, for some reason, people seem to keep driving into angry mobs. I wonder why. And we went back and watched the video and we're like, oh, parts of it are good and parts of it we thought really sucked. So we're going to try to do this again. So here is our hypothetical. This is the hypothetical we're going to be working on. And we're going to use a hypothetical today because one of the things that's changed since the last time we did a video about this is Google did not care what Washington Gun Law was putting online back when we did the first video. Why? Because we had no subscribers. Now we start putting images out there that portray violence, and Google has a tendency to crap our pants. So the hypothetical, we're going to do it this way today. You're driving around, you make a turn on your way home, and suddenly you are now in the middle of a protest, or what some people might call an angry mob, or what some people might call a riot. Doesn't matter, because now your car is surrounded, you can't really go anywhere, and they are beating on your car. What can we do from a legal standpoint? Okay, couple caveats. Number one, always consult with local attorneys because self-defense laws do change state by state. They can actually change within jurisdictional limitations inside of a state. So I want you to always make sure you consult with counsel. Number two, I am talking about what you can do legally speaking. There are all sorts of answers from a tactical standpoint, and I'm going to leave that to the tactical experts. But from a legal standpoint, there's really 3 things you can do when you find yourself in this situation here. Number 1, you can do nothing. That would be the use of no force. And at that point, you don't really need a self-defense lawyer. You might need a wrongful death lawyer or something like that, because that would probably be, again, from a tactical standpoint, a really dumb thing to do. But again, if you stay put, there is no force. So what is the types of force that could reasonably be used in that situation? Well, number 2, you could slowly drive away. And I think that if we're slowly driving away and we're pushing people out of the way and perhaps slowly knocking them over and things like that, that is absolutely positively going to be deemed the use of force. I didn't say lethal force. I said that is the use of force. And of course, the other thing we could do then is drive away in a very rapid fashion, striking anything that happens to be in our way. That, though, is likely going to be deemed in almost all jurisdictions as the use of lethal force. Let me explain why. Although every state is going to have a slightly nuanced definition, in general, a state is going to define lethal force or deadly force as deadly force means the intentional application of force through the use of firearms or any other means reasonably likely to cause death or serious physical injury. Because to be accused of using deadly force does not necessarily have to result in death. And I think we can all agree that when you are plowing into people and or running them over an automobile, that is certainly very likely to cause death or serious bodily injury. Okay, now to understand what is actually a fairly complicated equation that we're trying to simplify for you, let's go over the ground rules of when you can actually use force in general. So in order to use any kind of force in self-defense, the force we use has to be 1, necessary. Number 2, it has to be reasonable, and that has to be both subjectively and objectively reasonable. And finally, it needs to be proportional, okay? And that last one there, proportionality, is where we can get in trouble if we step on the gas prematurely. All right, then, again, every state's going to have a little bit of nuance, but in general, individuals are lawfully entitled to use lethal force or deadly force in any one of the 4 following scenarios. Number one, you are in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. Number two, somebody else in your presence, such as a passenger, is in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. Number three, you have a felony being committed upon your person. Or number four, you have a felony being committed inside your home. We're just going to go ahead and eliminate number four because we are talking about you being inside your car, not your home. And then finally, and this is important, with very, very few exceptions in a very short list of states, it is not lawful to use lethal force to defend property. Why? Well, because when we take a look at the reasons for which we get to use lethal force, it is a human being which must be in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury, not property. So although you may want to use lethal force against people who are messing up your property, in all likelihood, you do not have the legal authority to do that. So, if we go back to the scenario that we set up at the very beginning, and your car now is in the midst of an angry mob, and they are pounding away at the car, and yeah, they're putting dents in the quarter panel, and they're putting dents on the hood, and they're ripping off the antenna, and they are really messing up what is otherwise a really nice car. Do you have the right to use force? Yes. What's probably the most reasonable force to use is to slowly drive away, very slowly, recognizing that that's probably going to agitate the crowd more, and yes, the car is probably going to get beat up more, but nobody is going to determine that you driving away at 3 miles an hour is going to be deemed as the use of lethal force, okay? However, and this is the precipice I want everyone to understand, when they go from pounding on the car to smashing out the windows, the minute the windows start getting smashed, the minute things start flying through the windshields in any direction, well, it's not really about the car anymore, is it? No, because now every single individual inside the car is absolutely, positively being endangered. And now all of a sudden we have a situation where the driver would be in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. If you have passengers in the car, they too are in the same imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. And I got news for you. At the point that they're smashing out the windows, they're not that interested in the car anymore. They are more interested in the driver, which means at this point you likely have a felony being committed upon your person. The mere fact that we have glass flying around in the passenger compartment of the car alone probably puts a person in imminent threat of at least serious bodily injury, which means now the ability to step on the gas and get out of there quickly becomes much more legally possible. So, although there is no bright line rule, and although everything is based on a fact-by-fact, case-by-case scenario, and so things always change, and that's another caveat I need you to understand. The bottom line is if you end up in an angry mob and they're beating up your car, that is really unfortunate for both you and your car. However, once the windows start breaking, well, that's getting into an entirely different level of threat, and at that point, the type of force that you can use in defense of yourself and others is also equally going to increase. But if it seems like it's so simple, just like that, understand that if we step on the gas and perhaps we strike 2 or 3 of the people who are trying to smash out the windshield, that may be fine. But if we continue at a rapid rate and we start picking off other protesters a block or 2 blocks down the road, of which had nothing to do with the attack on you or your car, then when we go back to the reasonableness standard of the force you used, even though a jury could easily find that it was subjectively okay, objectively, the manner in which you then deployed the force and the force upon which it was inflicted upon was not reasonable from an objective manner, and you could still find yourself in legal jeopardy, thus bringing us to the biggest point of the day, which is, as a defense attorney, I can honestly tell you that the absolute best way to manage conflict is to avoid conflict. So, that's a very complicated equation that we tried to boil down to its most simple of elements. The bottom line is you do not have the right to use lethal force when it is only your car that is in jeopardy. However, once the windows start getting smashed and it is you and your passengers that are placed in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury, the law does permit you to significantly escalate your use of force. Okay, listen, if you guys got any other questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, which isn't much in some places right now, you all should know how to get a hold of Washington Gun Law by now, but if you don't, that's okay. That information is down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video we should be doing around here, you click on that link right there and you tell us all about it. If you want to subscribe to the monthly newsletter, our ability to do that is down there in the description box. And then finally, and most importantly, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.
Rioters in Portland are getting swept off the streets like this. Oh, they're getting out of a van. Were they hiding there? Oh, they're gonna chase somebody down. They're going after them. This is like a whole platoon of troops. Oh, these guys are not stopping. They got him? Yup. They got him. They got gas masks, rifles. This is wild. I would not mess with these guys, man. But look at this. If you cross the line, you do the time. And now this guy is going into the ICE facility. Look at that. He's going backwards. He wanted to leave. That's why he was facing the other direction. But nope, he's inside now. That blue line right there, you cross that line, you're trespassing government property, you get busted. Boy, they don't like getting arrested. For as much violence as these people spout, they do not like getting arrested. But they're all tough now. But when they get arrested, they're like, help me, help me. Yep, look. Oh, look at this guy. He's getting right in people's faces. This character. Oh. These people are awful, man. But what does it for me is the mockery.
You gotta strut like you mean it. Free your mind.
Yep.
It's not enough.
It's all a joke. This is the same person we just saw get arrested. Boy, look at that. They had to get taken down, backing them up. Yep. It's all a joke to these Antifa people until they do real time and face real federal charges like they should.
She's disabled now because she.
Oh. Look at this. This is wild. Every single one of these people is getting brought back into the ICE facility. Look at this guy. He's got his MAGA hat. He's by himself out there. You gotta be careful. Because look at this. These rioters, they're not afraid of their own police at all. These are the local Portland police who, after taking the summer off, are now back making arrests here. Listen to this. They're just being jeered and taunted. Look at them. Chased away by their own voters. This is crazy. Look at these maniacs, these Antifa people. Hey, there's Nick Shirley. He's in every video. He won't leave Portland until it's secure. Boy, he's going to be there for a while.
This evening has not disappointed.
No.
You're not even from here, are you?
Can I ask you what you're doing here?
Yes, this is my city. This is my neighborhood.
Look at this guy. This
what are you doing in my neighborhood?
bunny rabbit ears.
Message be to some of the people in that building who it is their neighborhood too and they're frustrated.
The woman right there is in full support. That is her.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple people. There are some who are in support, but some aren't. So what would your message be to them who feel differently than you?
I am so sorry, but this is what is necessary right now.
So, the people in this apartment building back here, they sued the city of Portland to enforce its own noise ordinances against people like Mr. Rabbit here. And the city of Portland said, we're not going to do that. We're not going to send police to arrest these people.
In support, but some aren't. So what would your message be to them who feel differently than you?
I am so sorry, but this is what is necessary right now for genuine change to happen. I'm sorry for the noise right now, but as long as people are getting hurt, innocent people are getting hurt, we have to.
They're not
noise.
innocent.
You can put earplugs in to go to sleep. That's about it.
I mean,
I'm sorry, if you
not with the level of noise
community,
these people make.
You'll shut your or you'll be on the front lines with us, protecting more people.
I know I talk.
So there you go. If you're not an Antifa member and you live in Portland, you're not part of the community. You're some sort of outsider, and they don't care about you. And they think that the illegal fugitives that ICE is here deporting who live in this sanctuary city have done nothing wrong.
I know I talked to a couple of them who are from their home, and thank you for answering. because there definitely are people in that building who are frustrated, as you know. Like, I talked to a woman in a wheelchair today who she says she feels like she can't move around and can't.
They're strobing the camera.
That is also because these people are here. If the fascists were not here, anti-fascists. Hey, I'm actually.
And I'm actually having a conversation. Can you not?
Well, no. I'm having a conversation.
This is awful.
Keep going with that, guys. Shine it more in our eyes, please.
Okay, then I'm not going to let you share what you're going to say. I mean, I'll put this on Facebook, but if he's going to do that, I'm not going to.
This is terrible. These people are so lawless. They don't want to have a conversation. They don't want their radical viewpoints to be exposed. And look, they're doing everything they can to hurt people. Even if it's something like shining a super bright light in someone's eye. You can buy stuff online that is not safe to shine in someone's face. These people are dangerous. They hate you if you're not one of them. And that's what's most frightening about them. And that's why we need these Marine battalions clearing the streets of this lawless sanctuary. This is so terrible.
If you are in our neighborhoods, you don't give a about those people. If you gave a about those people, you'd care about the gases that are getting into their homes. We don't have gases that are. Hey, I'm still talking, motherfucker.
I don't care.
Wow, this guy's terrible. The gases coming out of the ICE facility are because these rioters, like Mr. Rabbit here, keep trying to force their way into this jail and free the fugitives. But here's why these radicals are so upset about the reality of what they think getting out there. Their viewpoints are not uniting. Listen to this.
Yeah, Turning Point USA. Yeah. This is what we have to say.
You think Charlie Kirk deserves to die?
I think Charlie Kirk's a piece of... You know...
Yes or no?
That's the point.
Yes
honestly,
or no?
He's kind of a fascist, so I would say yes.
What's your message to the right wing?
These people hate normal Americans. These people are radical. This is who they are, man. They're like this guy. He's saying right here, this is our message. And he's burning a hat. And I don't know how they're going to bring people to their side of the aisle with this. They're probably just trying to circle the wagons because these people are a minority in this country. Yet what you see right here, this viewpoint, these viewpoints, these foreign flags, this hatred of America, this is what the Democrat Party in this country is being forced to embrace. These politicians, they're under a lot of pressure from these chanters and screamers to get on board with this total lawless agenda. Look, there's one American flag out here and it's been defaced. These people hate our country. They want communism. They want a wide open border. They want to break into that jail and release all the fugitives. This is awful. Everything about this is bad news. There's nothing peaceful about this. Yeah, they might be peaceful while they get up to the skirmish line, but after they're there, what happens? We've seen it. But here we have an Antifa sympathizer on TikTok trying to help drum up donations. I have to blur out how she says to support them because I don't.
And our military to go full force on the 24-hour music festival in Portland. They've been going for,
it ain't no music festival, sister.
115 today. And I'm worried about those folks. So here's some things that are good to drop off.
Oh, what do they need?
Helmets.
Why do they need helmets?
I found these at Goodwill.
Why would they need that?
Gas masks. I'll link this one below. This is a really good one that I found. It comes with a lot of filters. It's got mesh on the back.
Why do they need that if they're peaceful?
Distributes around the face, has a really good seal, which for the long-term wear, that seal is really important.
The long-term wear.
P100 refills for masks. These are the fine particle filters. These are the really important ones to save people's lungs.
Listen, people could save their lungs if they would stop screaming and stop fighting with federal troops, which forces them to deploy crowd control munitions. Can you imagine if Trump supporters were out there trying to drum up crowdfunded donations for the same type of equipment? Do you know what would happen to them?
First aid kits. Body armor, because apparently we gotta prepare for that. Backpacks are really needed.
Why?
Also construction cones to put over the canisters and like any camping supplies you have on hand.
This is so stupid.
I'm gonna put the address that you guys can.
This person is supporting terror.
Things to them. They need as much help as they can get right now. I'm worried. So I'm gonna be probably dropping this off maybe tomorrow.
Oh, and she's dropping this stuff off.
Anything you can drop off, or if you want to send some of this to them, I'm gonna link some stuff that you can send to.
So she's supporting terror, aiding terrorists. This is the kind of thing that the Justice Department should be looking into. You got people like this out in the open advocating their support for the destruction of America. Something should happen.
Our Portland folks, they have
an updated list.
Right now, they had a lot of people show up last night, and they need water. They need Gatorade, frozen water. If you can freeze some water, bring it down to them. They also need food they can grill, charcoal for the grill, lighter fluid, water ponchos. It's starting to get wet.
They're digging in, man.
Non-scented baby wipes have been really helpful for wiping off gas. Respirators and extra filters. If you want to see exactly the kind they are requesting, it's on their Amazon wish list.
Amazon, they have an Amazon wish list.
Can send down some hot
Why
food,
isn't Amazon disabling this?
Pizza, whatever. Those folks would really appreciate that. You can send it to the Cottonwood School, put the drop it off to the protesters in the description, and check out their Amazon wish list. If you can't drop...
Someone should report that Amazon wish list, find out who signed up for it, because all of this is material support for the enemies of our country and normal people like us.
Tuesday night was a different story, with confrontations and arrests. Fox 12 observed officers on a balcony appearing to record the crowd down below before another group of federal officers exited the gates, chased the people who were blocking the driveway to the ICE facility, then made one arrest. Later, we observed a van pull up next to the crowd and another arrest happened. Federal officials have documented using technology such as facial recognition to identify suspects related to protests at the ICE facility.
Now, that's great, because these folks need to be tracked down. They need to be arrested. That's what's happening, and that's why people are finally not at this facility 24 hours a day. They've been here for 3 months, you know.
Court documents filed in July detail how a suspect was ID'd using tattoos, then their face, before being arrested at their home.
He broke into that facility.
The witness who sent us this video from last night described seeing officers on the roof using lasers on rifles to single out individuals on the street who were then apprehended.
Good.
A spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security said a total of 6 arrests were made Tuesday for charges including assaulting law enforcement. DHS released this statement. Tuesday night, over 100 rioters stormed an ICE facility in Portland. They assaulted law enforcement, even putting one member of law enforcement into the hospital.
This is terrible. It's an all-out assault on our country. That's what's happening here. And they cannot be allowed to get away with it in Portland, because if they get away with it in Portland, they're going to do it somewhere else, and then somewhere else, and somewhere else. And it's going to spread all across the country to every lawless sanctuary stronghold we have.
Seemed to be an uptick in agitators, people riling up the protesters specifically this evening.
Agitators.
We spoke with folks in the area really to get their impression of how this situation is being characterized. Wednesday night outside South Portland's ICE facility.
Take a picture too. They don't last you longer.
This is crazy.
A small group of protesters heckle federal agents standing on the roof. Then an announcement.
This is the Federal Protective Service. The facility is closed and not open to the public.
Minutes later, in formation, the officers exit
Sweeping the streets
gates and appear to go after one protester.
Well. Wow.
Some residents living and observing close by say activity like this ebbs and flows.
I was down here the other night just standing along the side of the building there, and when they came out and were chasing people, and I was just like, don't start shooting over here.
In a war zone, that seems a bit extreme to me, because I haven't seen any, there hasn't been much in the way of people actually, fighting.
These people that live in Portland, I'm telling you, they must not have televisions. They must not have the internet to not know what's going on in their own city. But you know what it really is? It's willful ignorance. These people, they don't want to believe that their political party has deteriorated to the level of Antifa. That's what they're all expected to agree with. That's what they're all expected to defend. And you know what? If they want to defend it by being willfully ignorant of what their people are up to, and they want to support those people, and they want to call them peaceful, that's on them. They're wrong, and the world knows it. That's what I think anyways. What do you think? Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.
Tonight, police have several suspects in custody, but others got away.
And this all happened in San Ramon today at Heller Jewelers. The business has seen pricey heists before.
Yeah, but they're really shocked to see such a large crew robbing a place in the middle of the day.
So California's loot mobs are now storming businesses in broad daylight. And while experts call this an unheard of surge in violent heists across the state, those of us with brains know this is exactly what happens in sanctuary cities, which harbor every type of criminal you can imagine, not just illegal immigrants.
This cell phone video shows armed robbery suspects running to try and get away after ransacking Heller Jewelers moments before this. The front door to the store locked. The thieves couldn't get it open, so they did this.
New security video shows 3 suspects jumping out of a black car and tackling a man to the ground. The suspects wrestling for the man's Rolex, then snatching the watch and speeding off.
That's really like messed up that happened stuff. People work hard for their stuff.
It's unbelievable.
And earlier this month, this smash and grab robbery at Kim Hung Jewelry in San Jose. Also this jewelry store in Milpitas. 3 separate cases, all with identical looks of large groups of people ransacking jewelry stores.
Since March, we've had 30 violent robberies in California. This is something I haven't seen in my 30 plus years of investigating jewelry crime.
It seems like every week there's another multi-million-dollar jewelry heist somewhere in California. This is crazy. But what nobody's talking about is this right here is exactly what happens when you advertise your state as a sanctuary for criminals. Because in California, it's not just that federal fugitives here illegally are harbored and given free health care. Oh no, this state's sanctuary policies do not discriminate and extend to criminals of all backgrounds, who, if they get caught, are immediately released by the state's revolving door jails until they commit the worst of crimes. But when you add on top of that the amount of hatred many politicians in this state have for police, and the fact that many of these police departments are totally defunded and have to fight crime with one hand tied behind their back, no amount of lawlessness should surprise anyone. But it's puzzling California's progressive leaders who've called on the state's anti-Trump dictator to do something about soaring crime, which the governor and several sanctuary city minions just got done telling us was not an issue in their part of America, even though we all know it is. And that brings us to the real reason we're seeing so much lawlessness taking place in California. The deck has been stacked so high against the law abiding that they're essentially sitting ducks, which is terrible. And over the last few weeks, we've seen everything from high-end retailers to mom and pop shops taken for all they've got. A problem which doesn't just affect businesses, it also affects neighborhoods where multi-million-dollar homes get picked clean on a regular basis. Which is why criminals far and wide know their best life awaits them in California and looks a little something like this.
The store was burglarized over the weekend of May 25th. Police say the thieves entered the neighboring cafe, Dr. Conke's, then tunneled into five-star jewelry before torching and prying open safes. The 4 under arrest seen here in police photos are Chilean nationals who've already made their initial court appearances.
Right, so foreign fugitives are coming here specifically to rob businesses and commit crime. This certainly isn't the American dream anyone defending loose immigration policies has in mind, but nonetheless, the ease at which multi-million-dollar heists are happening in this state has criminals everywhere taking notice. Why commit crime somewhere else when California's doors are wide open and when they'll support you financially for coming here and not working a normal job? But now the question becomes, how do these criminals get so good at what they do? How do they learn to rob a place, bust through the front door, and steal whatever they want in seconds and get away with it? Well, as you're about to see, this is something California is teaching them.
That one was more of an organized hit. About 100 people gathered here at 4 a.m. and they just broke the window at the front door, and again, they took everything.
So you have hundreds of people running into stores, stealing things like chips and candy, and guess what? The police don't show up because to them, that's not a big deal. The amounts of individual items being stolen aren't worth a whole lot, so they don't punish it. But guess what that does? That gives all of these people practice. taking things that don't belong to them, getting away with it, doing it quickly. And ask yourself this question. The footage you just saw, does it look familiar in this next clip? We've got a massive group of people wearing the exact same outfits who run into this jewelry store and then pull out the tools you would use to climb Mount Everest, except they're not climbing Mount Everest. They're smashing open jewelry cases at this place where $1 million worth of jewelry was stolen in a matter of 45 seconds. That's crazy, but it's predictable. We've taught these people how to do this, which reveals that in addition to importing criminals, California is also pretty good at creating them itself, because nobody gets in trouble when they do anything. But as you're about to see, there are some specific facts about this latest heist that are scaring even people in California who don't care about crime.
This cell phone video shows armed robbery suspects running to try and get away after ransacking Heller Jewelers in San Ramon. Moments before this, while individuals were still inside smashing display cases and taking items, according to police, the front door to the store locked. The thieves couldn't get it open, so they did
had
this.
to bust
and
their way
everyone
out.
ran out. Not just 5 or 6 people, but almost 20, according to San Ramon police.
Broad daylight,
20 people.
Anybody could have gotten hit.
This type of organized crime, it definitely is something that needs to be taken higher consideration into.
Police say after the armed robbery,
but here's the thing. The chance to take this seriously is when it's happening in the convenience store, not when it's happening in the jewelry store. Let it happen over and over again at convenience stores and gas stations and places that nobody cares about except the business owner that's just lost everything. And guess what? Those criminals, one day they're going to get sick and tired of stealing potato chips. And when they decide to do that, when they decide to rob a jewelry store, they're going to have all the skills and tools that they need to do it. They're going to know exactly what to do. No one's going to have to train them. They will have already been trained by a legal system that holds 0 criminals accountable for what they do wrong.
We passed by, saw the caution tape, and a bunch of people around the crime scene area. I saw police officers.
Police say air support tracked the suspects through Contra Costa County and into Alameda County. At last check, officers tell us suspects were detained at 2 locations in Oakland and another spot in Dublin.
Honestly, it's crazy because the scale of these robberies is getting a lot larger. I think 2 years ago in 2023, we had this before, but it was only a couple of people. This looked like it was 20 to 30 people.
That 2023 case actually involved 5 suspects who were later caught.
So if a few years ago, you have just a few people doing something that's wrong and they keep getting away with it, and at the same time, we're training other criminals by letting them rob convenience stores constantly. Of course, it's going to lead to what we're seeing now. Daylight heists by masked mobs. This isn't just an escalation. This is almost a completely different level of organization and boldness. And it's all state-sponsored by a justice system that doesn't care about the little things. And ask any doctor, they'll tell you that early treatment is the best way to stop cancer from spreading. That's right. But look at this. You're not even safe at the gas station.
Still
Watch this.
searching for these 3 suspects who were seen pulling into this Sherman Oaks gas station here on Van Nuys and Ventura Boulevard, grabbing the victim while he was pumping gas, stealing his watch, and taking off.
Awful.
3 guys attacking 1 gentleman, and looks like they're stealing his watch.
New security video shows 3 suspects jumping out of a black car and tackling a man to the ground as he pumps gas in Sherman Oaks. The suspects wrestling for the man's Rolex, then snatching the watch and speeding off.
That's crazy.
That's really messed up that happened and stuff. People work hard for their stuff.
They do. And the problem is these criminals have been told that they can work hard and commit crime, and that can be their full-time occupation. That's what happens when you have laws against things like assault and petty theft, but they never result in serious charges. The people who do these things never end up in jail. They always end up back out on the streets. And these revolving door policies just train and harden petty criminals until they've got a master's degree in crime. And sadly, the best way to protect yourself in California is going to be to wear a plain white t-shirt, take the bus, and leave your phone at home. You can't have nice things in a place that protects criminals at the expense of the law-abiding. It doesn't work.
It is unbelievable. It's scary.
LAPD says this all happened just after 5 o'clock Thursday night near the intersection of Van Nuys and Ventura Boulevard, right across the street from a watch repair shop where the owner of 34 years says he's beginning to see these types of watch robberies happen more often.
They're not afraid. They're just in broad daylight. Some guys are either desperate or out of control.
Look, it's not about being desperate or being out of control if there's zero fear. If people, look, here they are, they're pulling the watch off the person, they're on security camera. Look, there's 15 security cameras at this gas station, and there's a person right here watching. There's no police around. They fled the scene. They're probably in a stolen car. Why be afraid if nothing is going to happen? And that's bad. If criminals aren't afraid to commit crime, you're just going to have more crime. And that crime is going to move from the jewelry on someone's wrist to the jewelry in the store. It's going to close down businesses, and it is closing down businesses. And this is all being done under the assumption that criminals are good people and that criminalizing crime, locking people up is somehow bad for the community in which the crime happened. And it's somehow bad for society in some way to have people in jails. That's dumb. If people are bad for society, the jail is a good thing for society because that's where we can put these folks. I think we need to build more jails and fill them up because the only thing these criminals understand are bars and jumpsuits. That's it. That's the language that makes sense to them. Take away their freedom and boom, people are going to be on their best behavior.
We've had 30 violent robberies in California, targeting jewelry stores. This is something I haven't seen in my 30 plus years of investigating jewelry crime with the NYPD.
Scott Guginski is VP of the Jewelers Security Alliance, which works to keep employees and customers safe at jewelry stores across the country.
He's got a lot of work to do.
He says that as gold approaches $4,000 an ounce, these stores are being targeted. Guginski says that 16 of the 30...
So the price of gold is going way up, and all these jewelry stores are getting cleaned out. Now, if you look at a chart that shows you the price of gold, you'll see that just a few months ago, it was around half of what it is today. And what that means is that the potential reward for criminal behavior in California has doubled, but the penalties have remained non-existent. Thieves can do the same amount of work and get paid twice what they were getting paid the last time they robbed stores a few months ago. That's wild. And that's not the fault of gold. That's not the fault of the stores. This is entirely the fault of a police department that's unable to properly protect its citizens and a justice system that takes these people and lets them go. All of these individuals that you see in these videos, they didn't wake up one day on their way to being a software engineer at Microsoft or Facebook or at Google and say, gee, instead of being a software engineer today and using my college degree, I'm going to go pursue a life of crime. No, these are folks who were taught to commit crime. They were taught that it was okay, and they've done it for so long that it's normal for them to steal.
Cases in California involve smash and grabs like we saw in San Jose.
And 14 others were mob-style, 10, 20, 30 people charging the jewelry store with sledgehammers and firearms.
Rodney Alamo Brown heads Soulful Softball Sunday and works with youth in Richmond. He says that until we do a better job educating and preparing our young people, these crimes will continue to happen.
Schools don't teach these kids what they should know. But
Listen, it's not about education. Jails and jumpsuits. That's the education that the people doing this never got when they were stealing from convenience stores because the police don't show up.
Adding to his frustration, he says the LAPD couldn't help.
They said there was nothing they can do about it. They said it's considered shoplifting, and shoplifting isn't something they can really go after.
Salib says given their tactics, he's sure the thieves have struck before.
So if we're going to decriminalize crime, if youth crime is going to be allowed, we're just going to create criminals. You educate criminals that what they're doing is wrong with a consequence. And when there's no consequence, you get hardened thugs. Not just homegrown hardened thugs, but hardened thugs from all across the world who say, you know what? California is a great place for me to go and do my thing. It's a much better place than Florida or Texas. And to me, that's the education that criminals are missing out on. If somebody goes and robs a store and they sell all the stuff from the store and they've got all this extra money and they brag to their friends, they're actually educating their friends that, hey, the criminal underworld's open for business. But if that person goes to jail, the legal system educates all of their friends that, hey, your buddy, he went to jail for doing something that's wrong. If you do the same thing, you're going to join him. What do you think about that? Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.
Were you consulted by the White House before they deployed National Guard troops to cities in the United States?
I am not going to discuss any internal conversations with the White House.
You won't even say whether you talked to the White House about this?
I am not going to discuss any internal conversations with the White House with you, Ranking Member.
I noticed that. What's the secret? Why do you want to keep this secret? The American people don't know the rationale behind the deployment of National Guard troops in my state. The word is, and I think it's been confirmed by the White House, they are going to transfer Texas National Guard units to the state of Illinois. What's the rationale for that?
Yeah, Chairman, as you shut down the government, you voted to shut down the government, and you're sitting here, our law enforcement officers aren't being paid. They're out there working to protect you. I wish you loved Chicago as much as you hate President Trump. And currently, the National Guard are on the way to Chicago. If you're not going to protect your citizens, President Trump will.
You are watching Jazz TV.
What we've got here is failure to communicate. Some men you just can't reach. So you get what we had here last week, which is the way he wants it. Well, he gets it. I don't like it.
Look at your young man fighting. Look at your women crying. Look at your young man dying. To me they've always done before. Look at the hate we're breeding. Look at the fear we're feeding. Look at the lives we're leading. To me, we've always done before. never said peace will last forever. And then my first memories to shot Kennedy. I went up and I learned to sing. So I never fell for Vietnam. We got a warm disease to remind us all that you can't trust freedom when it's not in your hands. When everybody's fighting for the promised land. I don't need your civil war. Feed the rich while it buries the poor. The power with some soldiers in a human grocery store. Ain't that fresh? I don't need your civil war. Ooh, no, 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 no. Look at the shoes you're feeling. Look at the blood we're spilling. Look at the world we're killing. The way we've always done before. Look at the doubt we followed. Look at the leaders we followed. Look at the lies we swallowed. And I don't wanna hear no more. My hands are tied. All I've seen has changed my mind, but still the wars go on as the years go by. The love of God or human rights. There's all these things I left aside. My bloody hands on the can see your love restrained. But darling, when I hold you, don't you know I feel the same? Oh yeah. There's nothing lasts forever, and we both know hearts can change. And it's hard to hold a candle in a cold November the only one who can